Okay. We will now go on to report of actions taken in closed session. Upon the motion of trustee Jacobson and seconded by trustee Griffin, the board moved to approve a special education settlement case with a vote of 5-0. Upon the motion of trustee Jacobson and seconded by trustee Griffin, we moved to approve the stipulated expulsion case 23/24-6 with a vote of 5-0. The board took action on an appeal filed under Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 4030. Upon the motion of trustee Griffin, seconded by trustee Land, the board upheld the findings and directed the superintendent and deputy superintendent of human resources and student services to provide written notice to the involved parties of the board's action with a vote of 3-2. The votes were as follows: trustee Griffin, yes; trustee Chavez, no; trustee Jacobson, no; trustee Land, yes; and I voted yes. We will move on to adopt the agenda. The Board of Trustees may either adopt the agenda as presented or make a change to the agenda through a motion, second, and majority vote. The Brown Act prohibits any additions to the agenda without a 72-hour public notice for regularly scheduled board meetings. Are there any questions or comments from the Board of Trustees or superintendent with respect to the agenda?
I do. So the staff is recommending that we pull 2 items off of the agenda for future consideration. The first one is on the consent agenda O.12. And the second one is on open session W.2.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion of the agenda as stipulated by the superintendent.
Second.
1 second, though. I have to take comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public?
I do see a hand raised. I don't know if it's for this item or not.
If your hand is raised and you are making a comment on the adoption of our agenda, please, I guess, go ahead and we will go ahead and promote you. But if not,
The hand dropped.
okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay.
I also have a proposal change. Would I do that before the vote?
What is it for?
Oh, it's to pull item 13, 2 of the contracts for renewal of Trust and Saphir and Restorative Equity
We'll get
Partners.
to that when we get to the consent agenda.
Okay,
Not yet.
all right.
Okay, great. Okay, let's
I
see.
still have a motion and.
Thank you. We have a motion by trustee Land. We need a second. I'll second. Or go ahead. Oh, sorry, maybe I didn't.
Before the comment.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't hear you. Okay, trustee Griffin has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there were no abstentions. There were no no's, excuse me, sorry. I can't think tonight. Okay, motion carries. Public comments. If you are joining us in person and wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comments section at the beginning of the agenda, please fill out a request to address the board form and submit it to the secretary. This form should be given to the secretary before the agenda item begins. If you are joining us virtually, use the raise hand feature on Zoom to be recognized. When invited to do so, your camera must be on before you are called upon to make a public comment. We will call on you to begin your comment once we have promoted you into the meeting. If your camera is not operational, please email your comments to the Board of Trustees at board, BOARD, at SMUHSD.org. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public comment, depending upon the topic and number of persons wishing to be heard. I will call on in-person comments request first. Are there any comments in person today?
There are none.
Okay. All right. Anybody on Zoom?
There is. I'll be promoting Candace Thomas.
Thank you. And remember that this comment is only on items that are not on the agenda. And that includes the consent agenda. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Hi, I'm here. I'm just gonna do it during public comment because these meetings run long and I'm in school. But I wanted to specifically address the trustees that were on the kind of margins on wanting to have Joe Trust in particular come back.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can't take the comment right now. We have to wait until the consent agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
the Brown
I'll
Act doesn't
be-
allow us to. I
All
apologize.
right.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Let's see, going on to any other folks online about anything not on the agenda.
No, there are no others.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to governing board comments. We will take any comments from the trustees at this moment. Does anyone have any comments? Trustee Griffin.
I just have a quick comment because we do have a long agenda item. I was able to attend the Juneteenth celebration downtown San Mateo and in Foster City, and they were quite something. And for anybody who somehow missed a Juneteenth, there's one more left at San Mateo Central Park, 2 to 4 p.m. on Saturday. So
Great, thank you. I'll write that down. Thank you very much. Right, anybody else?
Thanks.
Trustee Chavez?
Let me get the date right. It's been a long week. So I believe it was last Friday, a few of us, Superintendent Booker, and I think Trustee Andrade Zuniga and Trustee Jacobson and myself, we attended the 3rd annual Partners Luncheon for the San Mateo Foster City Elementary School District, one of our partner districts. This is my second time attending, and I think it's amazing. It's always great to bring in your partner school districts, and this time we were invited because we're their partner. And so it was great to attend that luncheon. A lot of celebrations there for a lot of different awards, and I thought it was really great to participate in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other trustees? Trustee Land or Trustee Jacobson? No? Trustee Land? Okay.
No,
All right, great. I will just read my land acknowledgement. Actually, it's not mine. The students from Cappuccino wrote this a couple of years ago. It says that our community acknowledges that all of our campuses lie on the ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone. The Ramaytush are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula, whose land was stolen from them and whose native language was lost because of Spanish colonization. As settlers on stolen land of the peninsula, we should be alongside with the Ramaytush, remembering and honoring their ancestors and relatives. We thank the first people, the Ramaytush Ohlone, for taking care of the land we use now for education and activities. Our responsibility of caring for the earth is unique and personal to each of us, but should be rooted in allyship with the Ramaytush Ohlone, so we can work together to protect and preserve the land for future generations. Yes, echoing what Trustee Chavez said, we attended the partner luncheon and it was great. I wanted to say just how sad I am to see Trustee Watkins from San Mateo Foster City moving away, and she has been a complete asset to that board. So we will definitely miss her. So thank you, and they do amazing work with all of their students there at San Mateo Foster City. And I want to always acknowledge our IT staff and our staff that fixes our room for us for the meeting, and just thank you to all of our staff. Okay, lastly, I just always want to keep in our hearts the young people that are suffering right now in different parts of the world where there's a lot of war and a lot of famine and just really terrible atrocities happening. My heart goes out to everybody. Okay, we will go on to communications to the board. There are none.
None.
And recognitions.
So this evening, we have the San Mateo Union High School District proclamation recognizing July 1st through 31st as Disability Pride Month. There is a brief proclamation attached to the agenda. Trustee, did you want to read that this evening?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Okay. Whereas Disability Pride Month is celebrated nationally in the month of July, and whereas July was chosen as Disability Pride Month because the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed by the U.S. Congress on July 26, 1990, to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities, with the help of many, many advocates and activists, sorry. And whereas the ADA prevents discrimination based on disability, requires that employers provide reasonable accommodations, ensures that public accommodations meet accessibility requirements, and is recognized as one of the most important civil rights laws in history. And whereas, according to the World Health Organization in 2023, an estimated 1.3 billion people experience significant disability. This represents 16% of the world's population, or 1 in 6 of us. And whereas approximately 12% of the San Mateo Union High School population experiences a disability, which is equivalent to the national average for school districts. And whereas while many individuals with a disability continue to face discrimination for something out of their control and for being who they are, they continue to persist through the efforts of the disabled community and the support of our school district, community agencies, businesses, and individual allies. And whereas the San Mateo Union High School District believes in the dignity of all individuals with a disability, supporting equity and ensuring that acts of discrimination and hatred will not be tolerated. And whereas the San Mateo Union High School District recognizes the inherent value, talents, and significance of the members of our disabled community. Individuals with a disability contribute to our community's success and strength in immeasurable ways. And whereas the San Mateo Union High School District strives to lead in creating a community based on disability equity through its actions and programs which support students with disabilities, such as the Bay University and Bay Academy. And whereas it is important to take time this month to reflect on the disability rights movement and the progress that has been made, as well as all of the work that still needs to be done. And whereas the disability community invites the members of the SMUHSD community to join them during the month of July in celebrating the persistence and achievements of the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the San Mateo Union High School District does hereby declare July 1st through the 31st, 2024 as Disability Pride Month. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board? I have some comments. One, there will be the San Mateo County Commission on Disabilities that I serve on. We're hosting our annual Inclusion Festival in Redwood City on July 25th from 11 to 3 at Red Morton Park. And it's a great day of different, just celebrating disability, and different organizations show up. There's booths and free food and entertainment. So for anyone that would like to join us, please do. I also wanted to mention that before the ADA was passed, in April of 1977, there were about 100 disability activists that occupied the federal building in San Francisco in protest of the Rehabilitation Act. And it was protesting the Section 504, where people were not they were not given access to not only federal buildings, but education, employment, housing, so many different parts of the lives of non-disabled people that were not afforded to people with disabilities. And so at that time, different organizations that were also civil rights and civil justice organizations like the Black Panthers assisted the people with disabilities in the federal building. They brought us dinner and food in general. There were folks that stayed and cared for people as caregivers. There were different folks that also brought water and just things that people needed. So it was pretty amazing. And this happened nationwide, but the one that stood the longest, which was 23 days, was the one in San Francisco. And so that's just a really interesting part of our history. There's 3 great documentaries if people would like to learn more. There's one called The Power of the 504. There's one called Patient No More. And then there's one called Crip Camp that features a lot of this stuff, a lot of the protesting and a lot of the occupation that day as well. But that also talks about the disability justice movement and just other situations. So, okay, are there any questions from oh, yes, go ahead.
No, I just thank you for those comments because that story was very compelling. And I know you're a particularly courageous person because
Thank you.
you go through walls on a daily basis. So
Thank you.
thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I was gonna say, sorry,
Okay, good.
me?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna, it's funny, Bob was saying exactly what I was gonna say. Leah, President Zuniga, Andrade Zuniga, thank you so much for those comments. I think this is a very important Pride Month for Disability Pride Month, and I really appreciate the history and context. And I just wanted to say I wanted a motion to approve if that's the appropriate time.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I would like
Thank
to
you.
make a comment.
Trustee Chavez.
Yeah, I would like to make a quick comment. So thank you again for that, your comments, President Andrade Zuniga. I wanted to comment that until you're in someone's shoes who have mobility issues, you really don't understand what they're going through. So a couple of years ago, my colleague, we went everywhere together. My work group would go to lunch together, and it was from our office in Oakland. And just seeing the extra routes we had to take, we took because he's in a wheelchair, he had mobility issues, but we had to advocate to have a button on the wall to open up the door for our floor at work. And that seems like it's not that hard to accomplish, but like with any corporation, it takes a lot of work to get something new put in. But we shouldn't have to take those, it shouldn't have taken that long. We should always advocate for anybody to have equal access. And so even going to lunch, looking on the sidewalk, looking to see is the curb, does it have, I don't know the technical term, but is it slanted? Does it go down to the sidewalk, the crosswalk in the appropriate place? Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he would go in his wheelchair and he would come down the ramp from the sidewalk and it was not actually in the crosswalk. So you could kind of be in traffic a little bit and then move over to the crosswalk area, but really take a trip with somebody who has mobility issues, go 10 blocks in whatever city you're in. It's a challenge. And that really, that leads me to also say that when you're parking in a parking lot, do not block the area where it says, handicap parking van accessible. If you park too close to that spot, then a person in a wheelchair cannot get out on the side of the van like they're supposed to. And there's more things I want to say, but sometimes I see sidewalks are blocked with trucks, vans, cars, and folks with mobility issues cannot just simply go down the sidewalk. They're simply in the middle of the street. I know I have a friend who he constantly says he can't go on the sidewalk because folks are blocking the sidewalk. Therefore, he needs to go into the street to go around that car. So just be mindful. So I'm really happy that we have this proclamation. More than the proclamation, think about when you see something that's not safe for somebody with mobility issues. Think about that advocacy. I'm sorry, I know I talked a lot, so thank you for listening. Thank you.
That's okay. No, thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned about the accessible parking because that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Please don't park in the stripes.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you. So we have a motion by Trustee Land.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, yes,
Well,
yes,
I was
sorry,
just going to say thank you so much for your comments and for raising awareness on this issue and for being such a glowing advocate
Yes,
and
thank you.
example.
Appreciate
And
it.
I will second the motion.
thank you. We have a motion by trustee Land and a second by trustee Jacobson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right. And there are no, there's no other discussion, so motion carries. Okay, going on to the consent agenda. We are moving to the consent agenda. So trustee Jacobson, you had mentioned earlier you have an item.
Yes, I would like to motion to pull item 13, not all of the contracts, just two of them, if that's okay. Trust and Saphir and Restorative Equity Partners for discussion.
Okay, thank you. So we will approve the rest of the, well, are there any other items that anyone would like to
Yeah,
pull?
I would like to pull item 15.
Item 15,
Yeah.
okay. We will pull item 15. And anything else? No? Okay, so we will approve the first.
Point
We
of
will
order,
approve the first group
point of
of,
order.
oh, yes.
You need
Go
a
ahead.
second? There was a
Yes,
motion by trustee Jacobson, but there was no second.
Yeah, no, but I wanted to explain what we're gonna do
Oh,
and then,
okay.
just in case people didn't understand, in the public. So we will first approve the items that are pulled, but then we will approve the rest of the items that are not up for discussion, and then we will go ahead and discuss the other items and then approve them. Okay, so we have a motion by trustee Jacobson to pull those items, and then
Pull two items.
Yeah.
to pull
Oh.
two items,
I
yeah.
think we don't need a motion to approve pulling the item. I think we need a motion to approve the remaining items that weren't pulled. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but I think we also have to make a motion to approve the pulling of the items too, right?
No, we
Yep.
No, then there is, okay, then no point of order then, right?
No,
Okay,
I disagree.
okay, go ahead.
You have to pass the consent agenda to pass the items on the list. You can have a motion that says, I want to pass everything except pull these items.
That's
And
what-
there needs to be a
right.
second and a vote.
That's what I said. There's no motion to pull the items, but there's a motion to approve the remaining items, and then we would go back to talk about item 13 and item 15
Right.
separately.
Okay,
That's what I
so,
said.
so, trustee Jacobson.
To restate, I will
Thank you.
move to approve the consent agenda excluding the items 13 and 15
yes.
for discussion.
And I
Thank
second
you.
that motion.
Okay, so we had a motion by trustee Jacobson and a second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Point of
Aye.
order.
Aye.
Sorry, no. Point of order, there is someone who has their hand raised for this agenda item.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but are there hands raised for the entire,
13 and 15.
yeah, or only for 13 and 15?
No items excluding 13 and 15.
But we can ask.
Yeah, so what are so I'm sorry, for the folks that are online that have a comment, if your comment is not for items for the items that we are approving aside from 13 and 15, we will, I guess if you could lower your hand, and if not, then we will take your, great, yeah, okay, there we go. So it was for 13 and 15, great. Okay, so are there any other comments before we go on with the vote? Okay, no comments. All right, so we have a motion by trustee Jacobson and a second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank
No.
you. Go ahead.
I voted no.
You voted no. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so we have, do we have to go back and do a roll call then?
No.
No.
Okay, so we have 4 yeses and 1 no. Okay, cool. All right, we will move on to items 13 and 15. All right, we can start comments from the board first.
You want to do public first or comments from the board? First?
We could do public first then.
Let's do public.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll switch it. Okay, we will take comments from the public first. Is there anyone in person?
There is not.
Okay, anybody online?
We have 2 hands raised. I'll
Okay.
start with Candace Thomas.
Well, I'm sorry, let me clarify. Do we have to take comments for both items at the same time, or do we separate them?
Separate them.
Okay, so I'm going to take comments for item 13 first. Go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
I'm promoting her now.
Thank you.
Hello again. Sorry for the.
Thank you for being patient. Go ahead.
So my name is Candace Thomas. I work at Mills High School. I'm the professional development coordinator also at Mills High School, and I would like to advocate for Joe Truss to stay on as an advocate to work to work with Mills High School. I would like to say last week, Trustee Jacobson and Trustee Griffin talked about how we have great in-house professional development, and I agree. But what y'all don't see a lot is what goes on in the background of that, and that is working with our consultants who can really give us a bird's eye view of what is happening. They have that outside perspective that when you're inside, when you're in the trenches, when you know the gossip, when you have relationships, it can kind of get, when you're in the day-to-day grind of things, it can kind of get tough to get that bird's eye view. And Joe really helps me with that. And I'm just going to speak to my own development as a leader in this district, as a teacher in this district. Joe has just been truly fundamental to that. And I know there are some concerns of agenda pushing, but when I have worked with Joe, it has always been, hey, Joe, this is what our faculty wants to do. We really need faculty norms. Can you help us with that? You know, we had the first time I worked with Joe for our all-day professional development last school year, we did family engagement, and we came to him with that idea. Hey, we really want to focus on family engagement. We have this idea that, you know, for WASC, we're going to have certificated, we're going to have classified. We want everyone to make a phone call home, a positive phone call home. And he helped us facilitate that. And not only teachers, I'm talking campus aides, like every people in the office were making positive phone calls home to families. And he was able to guide that and give instruction. And so, you know, I just think Joe in particular is just super important to not only my development, but also I know you already received an email from Lisa Poblete from Middle College, and how I've really enjoyed working with him. He is such a positive and great asset to the Mills team. And we only speak with Joe. I met with 3 to 4 times a year. And so I just and again, you don't see the behind the scenes of what goes on with professional development, but a lot of it is working with these consultants and the wisdom and the value that they bring to our districts. And so I hope that you would approve at least working with Joe Truss for Mills High School. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the queue?
There is Joy Pesamonte.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Pasamonte.
I'm promoting her now.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can see me. Good evening, Superintendent Booker, Board President Andrade Zuniga, Trustee Chavez, Griffin, Jacobson, and Land. Good evening to district leaders, educators, and community members. My name is Joy Pasamonte Henry, here as a member of the ACLU North Peninsula chapter and a Mills High School parent. First of all, I'd like to say how proud I am to be a part of this school district and the Mills High School community. After the grand jury report came out a few years ago and many students and community members such as myself asked the district to address the widespread racism and hate speech, the district took bold, uncomfortable steps to find a solution that wouldn't just check the box. Julia Kemke, a white district leader, along with others she brought on the journey, many of whom happened to be white district staff and educators, worked diligently to find and work with consultants that would not design a plan that was a one-size-fits-all, but one that worked for our schools and our students. One thing I've heard time and time again in the district and our schools is that we want to center the student voices, not the voices of anyone uncomfortable with this work, but student voices. Between Julia Kemke, Joe Truss, and Shane Saphir, they have a total of 60 plus years of experience in education. It would be unfortunate not to renew contracts for consultants leading the anti-racism work for a final year to make sure the work continues and is sustainable. I ask that the Board of Trustees vote unanimously to keep the contract with Truss and Saphir. I would also ask that all of us take the lead from the district and school staff to center student voices always. The comments made at the last board meeting that were reflected in the San Mateo Daily Journal article are dangerous, not just for students of color, but for white students as well. We cannot rewrite history, but we can shape a future for our children that is more equitable than it has ever been. When our most marginalized and underrepresented students have the ability to do well in the classroom, it benefits everyone in the classroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Can I take the next commenter?
Promoting Genevieve.
Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Genevieve. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Booker. Hi, and Board of Trustees. My name is Genevieve Pasmonte Henry, and I'm an incoming junior at Mills High School. I'm a student who doesn't look completely like any of my ethnicities, yet experience microaggressions or even straight up racism on a regular basis. I've had people uncomfortably touch my hair, not only at school, but in other public settings without asking. While at school, I get the stereotypical questions asking whether or not I like Kool-Aid or watermelon, fried chicken. I get looks from my peers when slavery or segregation is mentioned. I get comments that I'm not Asian enough, not Black enough, not Hispanic enough. In addition to focusing on school, I have to deal with people's reactions or comments about the colors of my skin or my hair or my features. Race and challenges of being mixed race is not something someone like me can ignore. It's not only about me being mixed and experiencing these things, but also as part of our school's diverse community, I recognize when my peers are being racially discriminated against in school settings, and at times it's overlooked or just not recognized by staff or higher ups. This happens at school, and it's important that we keep the anti-racism focus work. I think it would help for teachers to better understand their students, and that would also help the connection between staff and students, as well as academically, if they see all of them, their color, their culture, and their academic challenges. People of color who are successful must work harder than white people, because it's not just about trying to achieve equality, but also working towards it through equity. So I asked the board to vote on keeping the consultants who are helping out with their anti-racism work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay.
Pat
well,
Willard.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Willard.
Pat Willard, can you accept the invitation? There you are.
Go ahead.
Pat Willard, you can turn your camera on and begin.
Oh,
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name's Pat Willard, founding member of Peninsula Anti-Racist Coalition. I am very concerned about the state of education in America today. I'm rather stunned at the open expressions of racism across the United States has emerged in the last 5 or 6 years. Particularly stunned that, well, it's beyond my comprehension. As a 10-year-old, I was trying out the toys at a variety store in Southeast Texas when a tall white male towered over me and used the N-word as he asked why these N-words are in the store. Recently, I read an article in San Mateo Daily Journal that quotes Ms. Jacobson to the effect that, quote, it's also a problem that we say we value all cultures and respect all cultures and that everybody is welcome, and then demonize white supremacy culture specifically. I am sorry, but no one should respect white supremacy. Normally, I would recommend that a person who says this should resign. However, I would prefer instead to offer this moment as a learning moment for Ms. Jacobson as she continues her term. Secondly, her comment indicates to me that the renewal of the trust settle contract is of the highest priority. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any?
Next will be Lisa.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You are muted.
Sorry about that. Good evening, trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was not at last month's meeting, but I did listen to it, and I do feel like some of the statements were taken out of context. So I wanted to join this meeting tonight to say that, as I understand it, this is not a choice between the district advancing with its anti-racism and equity policies or not. We know the district's committed. Really, the question is whether these two consulting contracts are required to continue with that mission. And I thought that Trustee Jacobson raised some valid concerns regarding the nature and tone of some of Shafir and Truss's training. Their contract itself says that they encourage discomfort for folks with privilege, but it's unclear how they decide who has privilege and who doesn't. We heard from Genevieve, who said that, you know, they get comments all the time that she doesn't fit squarely in one box or another. And I think that's true for many people. And I don't think it's appropriate for educators or people training educators to look at people and assume based on the color of their skin that they're privileged and that they should be uncomfortable or made to feel uncomfortable. So I think it is worth considering whether we should continue paying Shafir and Truss up to $1,250 per hour, which is, you know, roughly the hourly rate they're charging in this contract, to continue with that sort of work, or whether we should bring in some different voices, whether we should utilize the many resources within the district who have been trained on this to offer different perspectives, offer maybe more inclusive training that doesn't make half or a third or a quarter of our students feel marginalized. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else online?
Yes.
Thank you.
Gina Miranda's our last person.
Go ahead. Miss Miranda? You are muted if you're talking.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes. Can you turn your camera on?
I can't hear you,
Thank
so I
you.
don't know if.
Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, I think we might have lost her. Can you hear us, Miss Miranda?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, but we need to have your camera on. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead. Oh, I think it's her service. Oh, Miss Miranda, we cannot hear you if you're speaking. Okay. If you can log out and log back in, okay. Yeah, I don't see her either. Bummer. Okay, we will keep going at the point when she is able to come back. Are we able to take her comment? Yeah, yeah, would you all consent? Okay, great. Okay, so at the point when she comes back on, we'll take her comment. Oh, here we go. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yay. Go ahead.
Oh. I'm so sorry. I'm at an airport and I just think this is vital though. So I wanted to comment on the anti-racism training and why I think it's important. My name is Gina Miranda. I'm a longtime resident of Millbrae and put both of my boys through Millbrae Public Schools, including Mills High School. They've told me a lot of stuff over the years that happened at Mills, but you know, lots of anti-racist comments, or lots of racist comments, I should say, which were normalized, were no big deal. And I'm glad to see that some folks are interested in changing this. Currently at Mills, I'm seeing student leaders. I'm doing some work with them. They're taking on great leadership work, getting their voices heard, whether it's Latina mentors, or folkloric dancers, or other cultural groups. I don't want to see those voices get shut down by this type of thing. At Aragon High School, I sat in on a diversity class, and I was majorly impressed with so much detail that the Aragon High School students got to learn about that I never learned about in school. So for the San Mateo School District, I want them to continue this learning process and honor its commitment to anti-racism. It seems like Trustee Jacobson and others want to go backwards with education, and possibly just for one reason, because of discomfort with the word supremacy or the word white. I'm not sure what it is. But the truth is, all of us, regardless of our color, need to take collective action, to collective responsibility, always. And we have to be willing to move forward as we're going through this discomfort, learning from it, right? That's what the learning process is. It's not to make excuses to go back to square one. That's not going to help anything. Also, with education, we want to be open to learning more than just the barest of facts. And I think this training helps with that. Education cannot be about slavery happened, then Jim Crow happened, then MLK happened, and now we're done. Personally, as a history buff and part of Millbrae's Historical Society, I know that we can be in the state of constantly fixing our future, but only if we dive deeper. Those are the important discussions, the why, the how. Anyway, none of this involves pity, blame, demonizing, or crying about the past. But it does involve ensuring that we are better because we have learned from our past. And this whole episode with discomfort really shows me that we need outside consultants to help with this extra knowledge. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for your comment. We will go on to one in-person comment. Yiffy, I can't see. You're on?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Mhm.
Hi, board. Thank you. I was not prepared to speak about this topic. I came for public comment on a similar topic, which was on the planned anti-racism framework, but I did want to stand up and actually voice support for Trustee Jacobson because I have reviewed the anti-racism documentation that you have on your website, as well as listened to the board meeting where this had been discussed. And I do recall that it was Trustee Jacobson who really emphasized, I did not hear anything racist in what she said. She really emphasized bringing multiple voices into the discussion, including those that may not align with the framework's focus on oppression, liberation, and social justice. And these included BIPOC voices such as Coleman Hughes and Thomas Sowell. And I do think that comments, I also was not at the last board meeting, but I do believe that her comments were have been taken out of context. I think she was encouraging seeing things from a broader lens rather than a focused lens, and not to include the multiple voices that are important for this discussion of not seeing strictly people from a very binary lens of your skin color. So I just wanted to express my support and gratitude for adding diversity of voices and the importance.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other commenters online or?
There are none.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to board comments. Does anybody from our board have a comment? Go ahead, Trustee Jacobson.
Well, first, I just want to say to the speaker we had earlier that read out my comment about white supremacy culture, and I wanted to clarify that that white supremacy is evil. It is wrong. I don't support it. Nobody should support it. I agree with you. I think part of the problem with the term white supremacy culture and the definition that it's been given is that white supremacy already has a meaning and an association in people's minds. Usually people think of the KKK or Nazis or neo-Nazis, which are, you know, nobody wants to be associated or upholding those actions or ideas. And so the work of Tema Okun, whose work on white supremacy culture that these consultants have trained the staff on, many of those characteristics have nothing to do with race. It can't be attributed to white or Western culture. Many of these things are, you could view them as more like management do's or don'ts. And so why racialize it? Why associate it with things like neo-Nazis? It seems to me that the purpose of doing that is intentional because nobody wants to be caught defending or associating those ideals. And so to me, it feels like a manipulative technique to force acceptance and suppress dissent. I want to also emphasize that I do support work to eradicate racism and to examine our organization and find where it exists and make sure that we take action against it. And I also just want to point out that we have spent between Trust, Saphir, and Restorative Equity Partners who worked with the students, we've spent nearly $1 million in 3 years on this project. And I think it has had some positive results. We've definitely had staff express that, and I acknowledge that and thank them for speaking about to that. But the fact is that we still have a large, a significant problem with hate speech and dehumanizing language. In the survey response questions having to do with, here's one where it says, when there are instances of hate speech at my school, I see adults respond in a way that makes me feel safe. That metric has stayed pretty flat overall for the district, but it's actually decreased in some of the most significant populations, like our Black students. That's in our LCAP report. So over the last 3 years, with all this money spent, I'm just not seeing some of the outcomes that I think we should be expecting. And so I'm wondering if our funds should be diverted to a different consultant with a different perspective in order to broaden the scope, or take a different approach, or save the money, because teachers have expressed that this has been useful, and maybe we don't need to continue to spend the money. So as far as I just have a couple of questions to ask or to think about. How do we as a district determine what policies and practices are barriers to achieving our moral imperative, which is student success? And what do we stand to gain by continuing to racialize the process? What do we stand to lose? And are there perspectives that we haven't considered yet? So those are some things for the board to consider moving forward. Thanks.
Are there any other comments? Yes, sorry, Trustee Lana, I can't see your hand.
Sorry, thank you. So I'm going to take a very different approach from Ms. Jacobson. I do understand the need to say, okay, some things are still a problem. Dehumanizing language is still pervasive. But I want to remind everyone on this board that when the grand jury came out, it was anti-Semitic, racist comments that happened at several of our schools, and it went straight to the grand jury, and we took action on that. I think we took radical action on that. And I think we've made some progress. But we have more work to do. And I totally agree with Ms. Jacobson, but we have to be continuing the fight. I think one of the speakers said it very well, where, there's still problems. There's still issues that are taking place, and we need to address them. I remember Candace Thomas came to our board and talked a little bit about how do we eliminate the N-word? And that was the work that was going on from one aspect and one of our affinity groups. And I think it's critical. We're taking ownership, which I think is great. And I think it's a start, but I don't think it's time to stop. I think, these contracts are for leadership in particular, to really get them to get different perspectives, to look high above, to go beyond our own experiences, but also to support our own experiences, and to really come up with good pedagogy, good lessons, good ways to implement what needs to happen at the schools, because I think we do have dehumanizing language in our schools still. We still have, Genevieve said it very well and articulately, there's still problems that are happening. And if we turn away from it, we're not addressing the problem. And I think we need to. And I think we've done a really good job trying. And I don't want us to deviate from our course. I really want to commend Assistant Superintendent Kemke on all the work that we've done. Yes, it's cost a lot, but I think we've really evolved and we've made some movement. Do we need to do more? Absolutely. So there's no doubt in my mind that we need to continue contracts like this.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, Trustee Chavez.
I have a comment about the article that you probably got. I got this article from last year, March 1st, 2023, leading a district anti-racism journey. I agree with Trustee Land. We have more work to do. I'm just wondering, in light of what Ms. Jacobson said, that we've already spent $1 million, and if is there another vendor that would be better, or in-house? I'm going to read a couple sentences from the article that's from these two individuals. It says, at the heart of San Mateo's story is a piercing truth. The work of anti-racism is about cultural change. An early turning point for San Mateo's district leaders was a realization that the traditional concept of leadership doesn't apply to anti-racism work. I'll read one more. As San Mateo entered one of the more challenging school years in recent memories in the fall of 2021, contact tracing outbreaks and the real threat of COVID loomed large. Simultaneously, the district had acknowledged the harm of racism as another plague it needed to address. So I'm just hoping that this vendor, this contract, they're in their 4th year now. They're talking about San Mateo. Our school district serves 6 cities. We do have 3 schools that are in San Mateo. We have 3 comprehensive schools that reside in San Mateo, the city of San Mateo. We have 3 comprehensive schools that reside outside of the city of San Mateo. I really hope that they are not just addressing the 3 comprehensive schools that reside in San Mateo, because this article is filled with San Mateo and San Mateo's leadership. So that's what I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Sorry, for a clarification, I think they meant San Mateo Union because our name is San Mateo. Yeah.
Say that in the district.
I have a couple questions for Ms. Kemke. Can you clarify what the rest of the process is now? Of why we should be using Shane and Joe at this point, what's left, who are requesting the assistance, and what is the cost at this point? Please. Thank you.
So one of the benefits to continue using the contract into the 4th year is if we did move to another similar provider, the amount of time that it takes an individual contractor to get to know our district, to understand our all of the people here, as well as develop the relationships in order to be a high quality provider. It's a lot of time. So we've invested, some of it is just having the relationship. So you heard from some of the PD coordinators around that relationship. And it's really important that we have that in order to continue to work. We knew going in, when we initially contracted with someone, we did go through a request for proposal process. So, and then we had a large team of district teachers, classified members who reviewed the different proposals, and we landed with Trust and Saphira through that process. We knew that it would be a multi-year process and that we would respect the different teams at the schools who felt like they continued to need this kind of support. So at this point, it's Mills High School who's still requesting it, Middle College, and then we're requesting it here centrally to support our instructional lead team. And part of that is the instructional lead team does a lot of PD themselves. They need some support centrally to have a moment where they're not actually doing all the facilitation that they have other folks. And because we built a relationship there, we don't have to take the time to build agendas and have another contractor get acquainted with the district. After this year, I don't know what I would anticipate in size of the contract. I think right now the contract's at 56,000 for Trust and Saphir. I think was all your questions. So
yes.
Those are the 3 places in the district that we're using the process. And yeah, I mean, there's just at this point, there's a economic reason to actually continue with a particular contractor because we have relationship with them and we don't have to go through a whole process of them understanding our particular needs as a district.
Thank you. And then also what is in your experience, like what has been the process? So I guess some of the questions were that people have not seen any results. So what is the process like from the beginning to now? What would results look like? And how soon could we see results? Because I'm assuming that this work takes time.
Well, and I want to be clear, Restorative Equity Project, REP, is one contract that's training students and supporting their leadership on campus and disrupting hate speech, as well as them developing as leaders to identify different equity projects that they want to complete. The work with Trust and Saphir was to support our anti-racism initiative to ensure that we had common language as educators. Because even 4 years ago, for me to be speaking as comfortably as I am around anti-racism in this district, it was not necessarily the case. So some of the growth is simply some of the language that we're able to more comfortably use across the district, is some of the work that we've done with Trust and Saphir. In terms of the length of time for us to eradicate the use of words that are prevalent in also our society, I cannot say. I hope that we will find some ways to eradicate the use of racial slurs. But that work to me, is ongoing, and it requires the whole community to be behind us, because we know some of these cultural norms that tell students that it's okay to use that language is something that they're developing in middle school. They're coming in and we're still struggling with it. We know adults use this language. So we want to make schools a place where we are eradicating the use of racialized language, and that we are ensuring a place essentially where students feel safe, and that no matter their identity, that they feel that they can learn, because they feel emotionally, socially safe, because we know that from brain science that that's when they learn. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but in terms of eradicating like this type of language on campuses, the amount of the use of contractors that we need to do that, I think, is less and less. And we've seen that over the last 3 years, is that we've developed a lot of internal capacity. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to leverage a lot of that going forward.
Thank you. I want to just also support what you were saying about the culture change. I think one of the teachers had sent us some statements from some students, and that's one of them named that it's a culture shift, it's a culture change in this district. And I think that's supported by kind of what Trustee Land was saying at the last meeting. He mentioned a systems change, and that's culture. And so I think, in my opinion, it has to be something strong, radical, very honest about that change. And it cannot be watered down. It has to be honest. It's like we talk about any ism, they all come back to superiority of something. Anti-Semitism, ableism, racism, it's all coming back from a superiority of something. And so it has to be a culture change. And I think in all of the supporting evidence that I've seen from Joe and Shane, I have seen that. And I've looked at some of the folks that you were mentioning, and unfortunately, they also kind of downplay this. And that's not helpful, because if we have language in our district that isn't changing, then what is it going to take to change that? Watering it down isn't going to do that. So in my opinion, I would like to move to accept the consultants, both Shane and Saphir, and the restorative partners as well. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I just a couple of comments, and a lot. And Trustee Land has his hand up. It's been up. I don't know if it's a current
I'm
hand
sorry.
or anyway.
You
The issues we're talking about have been around since slavery, and and we're doing the best we can within the confines of our district, quote unquote. And it does need to be disruptive, but we shouldn't fool ourselves that we're going to change the rest of society, because all our parents, all our stakeholders, they go home. I think it really does need to be disruptive. And I know the board, we deliberated because there was a significant investment in this when we adopted the whole plan. And we realized that, okay, it was a lot of money, but it was an important issue. The one thing I would like to thank Ms. Thomas, because I had said, well, if we can do this in-house, we certainly should try to do this in-house, except for the fact that she says, well, it really is a difficult undertaking. And I appreciate hearing that because they need the support and help while they're doing other things. So that was a helpful comment. When we go out and procure and we've kind of set the program in place, I would hope if we kind of got to the end of a stage that we have and we do get to a reset and we're talking about RFPs, we have a deep discussion about who we're using and what we're using them for. Because once we start going down that road, I think, we have to, and we do have to trust in the administration and, and their recommendation. So, I mean, that's, but I would like to see a real deep evaluation or something in depth whenever we get to the end of this phase.
And to your point, I mean, it's any culture change takes time. We're not going to see results like tomorrow or next year, maybe even. But I agree with you. I trust the judgment of our administrators and our educators. I think, unfortunately, what this does is creates feelings of mistrust and a devaluing of their knowledge. Our staff has the best intentions for our students always. I and for their families. I don't think that there's anything ill about this at all. I don't think that I think they know what they're doing. I have a lot of trust in them. And so anyhow, so we will go on to any other comments. Yes, sorry, Mr. Land, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm actually going to take something that, Trustee Griffin just talked about. And I think Dr. Kempke alluded to, we have done shifts, because I think one of the questions that came up from Ms. Jacobson or Trustee Jacobson was that, are we shifting? And I know we have. I know we have changed some of the PD people, but I just want to confirm that because I feel like we are heading in evolving as time goes on. And I feel like our capacity is building. So I think there's a shift, and I'm just supporting that. I think to get rid of this would be not a good shift. And so I just want to confirm that we have dropped some, like with ethnic studies, certain groups, and we're evolving. Isn't that true?
I mean, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I would absolutely say that we're evolving. In the next presentation or in a presentation in just a little bit, you'll hear about the summer PD that was put almost entirely on by our own staff with the focus around this. And so that work is the long-term result of being able to have the support of outside contractors as well as our own internal PD team to support the development of individuals, because teachers in themselves are not professional development providers. We are trained to teach students, and you don't necessarily become trained to work with adults. It's a very different set of skills. And so we needed support in order to be able to do that. And our belief in the plan all along was, how are we going to be able to do this in a sustainable manner, as well as how do we have the internal capacity so that it does become part of our adult culture, as well as for the students. So that has been the evolution over time. And that's why you'll see that when we first contracted with them, there was great debate at the board because we were investing a lot of money at that point. At this point, the contracts are a lot smaller because we've been able to internalize most of this work. So, I mean, I think there should be, and certainly we could come back to the board with a demonstration of the growth that we believe we've seen over time through this work.
Thank you. And, we also look at the needle for our students. I think ultimately that's what needs to be centered is how are we going to move the needle for these kids? Because they need to progress. And if we aren't doing anything that's going to disrupt that, I mean, that's in our vision statement, it's in our mission statement, it's in everything, it's rooted in moving the needle for the students. And so that's why I wholeheartedly believe in this work. Are there any other comments? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Land.
I was just going to say, since there's no comments, I'd like to make a motion to pass consent agenda item 13 in its entirety.
I will sorry, Trustee Griffin?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion by Trustee Land and a second by Trustee Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And no, okay.
No.
So we have three, yes,
Can we roll call?
yes, we can.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I know that Superintendent Booker called me a little bit before 4 o'clock saying we, just as a procedure, procedure awareness that we may break up part of this consent item. So are we not breaking up? We're just going to keep it, all the contracts on consent item number 13. Are we keeping them all intact then?
No.
Oh, that's what I just heard Greg make a motion to pass
Go ahead.
the
Trustee.
entire
Oh,
Yes, that was my motion.
number 13
Yes.
all intact. So
Yep, that's
if
my
we're not-
motion.
I think I just need to know that or not.
Trustee Land, go ahead.
Sorry, just for clarification, I made the motion to take, it was taken off because of certain issues. I made a motion to approve all of them, not just the ones, because we have to approve all of them. So my motion was to be in its
Yeah.
entirety. to
And that
approve
was, and that's why I'm clear. That's why I asked for clarifying because earlier today I heard
So-
we might break them up. Yeah, go ahead.
Point of order, yes, so we can choose to.
Not with a motion on the floor.
Yes, the motion on the floor is to approve all of it.
Huh?
Sorry,
Was there a
Superintendent.
Oh.
Superintendent Booker has something.
Oh, okay. So I spoke with our attorney earlier today to get clarification on this particular issue. And the question I asked the attorney is, are we permitted to pull 2 contracts off of item number 13 for discussion without pulling all of them? I think there are 7 or 8 or 9. I forget exactly how many are there. And the attorney said that that was permitted, and that if when those two contracts were pulled for discussion, a motion could be made to approve those 2, because all of the other contracts were already approved by a motion earlier by Trustee Jacobson, seconded by Trustee Chavez, with a 4-1 pass, except for the 2 contracts on item 13 and the item 15, which was the candidates for the adult school graduation.
So point of clarification, how were they passed when we didn't, if consent item 13 was pulled, then we didn't vote on anything yet on consent item 13.
That's what I thought.
Not on
Yeah.
13.
Not on 13 and not on 15.
No.
So we approved in a 4-1 vote, all consent items
Everything.
except item 13, item 15.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Trustee Jacobson, you can help me with my memory. What I have in my notes is that Trustee Jacobson pulled item 13, PD contracts, Trust and Saphir, and REP, those 2.
That's what that is correct, Superintendent Booker. If
Because-
that is allowed, that's what, that was
that
my
what's in the
understanding
notes?
and that's what I did.
Yeah, that's what
I
was.
Is
don't
that
have
what's
that-
in the
I don't-
notes? Because I just
I
want
don't have that.
clarification.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have that as my understanding. I have that Trustee Jacobson pulled item 13 and Trustee Chavez, myself pulled item 15. I don't have in my notes that you pulled a portion of item 13.
I think you have to pull the entire thing to
You
discuss.
do. I was gonna say that in my prior board.
Yep, my prior
portion
board
of
is
a single
exactly.
consent Item can't be
You
separated.
can't just separate some.
We had legal counsel talk to us a few years
Yep,
ago about that in
I
my other
agree.
boards. And then when I looked at California Ed Code right before our meeting, it stipulates you can absolutely pull a consent item to
But you have
discuss
to
it and
talk
vote
about it in its
separately,
entirety.
and doesn't say you can pull a piece of a consent item.
I agree.
Right. Yeah, because I was gonna abstain if we were gonna pull out pieces, I was just gonna abstain.
Yeah.
Unless you can show a consent, I'm sorry, unless you can
I
show a
just-
California Ed Code that shows me differently, that you could pull a piece of a consent.
I think the conversation was, and my understanding is, we wanted to discuss the two issues that were pulled, which are part of item 13. But the
Yeah.
only way we can discuss those two items is remove
The whole
item
13. Totally agree with you, trustee
entirety.
Land. I totally agree with you.
Now, if there's someone else can make a motion to approve them separately, right?
I
No,
think you should
there's
do
a motion on the floor and a second.
Yes.
You have to
Yes.
vote.
No, I know, but
Just go with that.
if that motion is shot down,
Yes.
then a new motion can be made, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the motion is to approve item 13 in its entirety. And there was a motion made by trustee Land, seconded by trustee Griffin. And now I'll go down the roll call. Trustee Griffin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Chavez?
No.
Trustee Jacobson?
No.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Okay. Thank you. Now, now going on to item 15.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry.
I pulled this item just to congratulate on the list on the memo here that's attached to item, sorry, I'm tired. The item for consent item 15, there's a memo attached on the agenda with 20 names. And I just want to congratulate each and every one of the 20 names because obtaining your GED, my husband, a little, this is kind of personal. My husband was immigrated from Mexico and after he was already a father and working full time, he attended Jefferson Union High School District Adult Ed and worked really hard. It took a couple of years. It's hard actually to obtain your GED. So I wanted to say some of these 20 folks right here, some of them are working full time. Some of them are mothers, fathers. I just want to congratulate each and every one of them. And I know that they have their adult ed graduation. I'm really happy to say that I'm going to make every effort to go. It's next Thursday, and I've already RSVP'd, and I'm really excited about that. And I know we were almost going to have a study session or some kind of a board meeting. I'm glad that I believe that's postponed because I would be kind of torn between, am I going to attend that graduation or am I going to attend the board meeting? Right? They're both really important to me. So I pulled this to congratulate those 20 individuals because that really is a lot of work. Could take years of studying to pass your GED. There's several parts, but I know Dr. Kemke, she can explain that further, or maybe we don't need to. I just wanted to congratulate the 20 individuals and just say, I know it's a lot of work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve item 15?
I move to approve item 15.
Okay.
And I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve item 15 by trustee Jacobson and a second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, we will go on to regular reports. Report of the superintendent.
None this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Report from the District Teachers Association.
There's no report.
Thank you. Report of CSCA chapter 519, excuse me. Okay,
Ms.
go
Clemens
ahead,
coming
Ms.
on?
Clemens, thank you.
Ms. Clemens, you can turn your camera on and unmute and begin.
I'm working on it. Thank you so much. Let's see, I actually did write something down today. Good evening, everyone. I had to leave the board on mute because it was stressing me out, just because it was just super crunchy as far as I could see. But I appreciate everyone doing their best to try to deal with it because there's no easy way around it. But thank you very much for allowing us, the CSCA and President of the CSCA, opportunity to speak this evening. CSCA has enjoyed the benefits of our negotiations last year, and I was glad to hear that some of the benefits that we negotiated were offered to other classified staff. Like the confidential staff were able to dovetail on to our longevity that we negotiated and the stipend. And it'd be nice if we could include the other classified group at the district, which is small, similar to the confidential. And those are the ASME members. That way, all the classified would be entitled to the same benefits. Negotiations, problem solving, reclassification, and the one and done individual reclass were all tough this year and still unfinished, and hopefully that we can work better to resolve this next year. And one thing I need to learn, and we at CSEA need to learn how to manage our expectations and not feel so disappointed or disillusioned when we think things are going one way and they completely go sideways. But I guess it's all part of living and learning. So I don't want people to think that they have to keep their heads down and hope for the best, because our school district is better than that. And I think that everyone appreciates everybody, regardless whether you're teaching, you're in charge, or sweeping the floor. Everyone has a place and it's important. So there are just so many really outstanding classified staff who are underestimated and with the value they can bring the district. And I would somehow like to promote that. I'm not sure how, but just like during the pandemic, MONF will be working every day, and we'll see you after you get back from your break. So have a great summer and good night.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, are there any reports from the adult school?
There are none.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
Which one am I pushing? This one here?
That one, yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Going on to special reports and appearances. Go ahead, Superintendent.
Yeah, thank you. This evening, I've asked Mr. Ryan Simmons to come and give an update to the board on our career technical education program. This was out of a request from trustees earlier in the year. This by no means is, such a full report that we're going to get into all the little details and all those kinds of things. No, this is really a report to bring everyone up to speed as to what our program is, what the state suggests and requires. And I very much envision us bringing this back to the board in the fall to further discussion, answer questions, get feedback, all of those kinds of things. So this is really an intro session, and we'll be bringing back more come the next school year. So Mr. Simmons, thanks.
Thanks, Superintendent Booker. Good evening, Board President Andrade Zuniga, board members, cabinet. I'm here tonight to give this brief presentation on CTE. This slide is just a quick simple summary of the presentation. I'm going to start by reviewing our programs and then move into a quick summary of some of our outcomes, and then finish by summarizing our programmatic strengths and areas for growth as a district. So this slide is intended to give you a little context about CTE statewide and then our programs. As you can see on the left-hand side, there are 15 unique industry sectors or pathways, as we tend to refer to them, that are promoted and supported by the California Department of Education. They cover just about every sector you can imagine in terms of work. The list on the right summarizes the pathways that we offer across our school sites. And while not all of our schools provide courses in all the pathways indicated, most schools offer at least 3 or 4 pathways. This slide's a simple display of our program, kind of just in a really simple graphic. As indicated in the board memo on this item in the agenda, all SMUHSD students take 1 course in career technical education as a graduation requirement. These courses taken at any point in a student's high school career ground them in the content of the respective course that they're taking. So it might be foods or biotech or computer science. But they also engage students in some core professional building blocks like resume writing and cover letter development, work-based learning activities like field trips or in-class speakers and things like that. As well as they spend a fair amount of time on interest inventories that prompt students to really think about what are the kinds of things they want to do with themselves when they get older, and then ultimately, why would they actually go to college, not just college as an end, right? And so in the best case scenario, students take a second course in the pathway, and that's sort of the two right-hand boxes there, that even kind of develop an even more robust set of skills to prepare them for work life. And finally, in some instances, students are dually enrolled in their CTE class and a college course simultaneously, right? That's what dual enrollment is. And those are often, in the case of our district, uniquely in the region, actually taught by our instructors in about half the classes. This provides students with college level rigor and credits, and also exposes them to what it would mean to take courses in that pathway at the community college. This slide is intended to give you a sense of how many students in the district complete pathways, which really we in the state see as sort of the best version of a CTE experience for students, right? It's one thing to give students a one-shot sort of one class to learn about a particular field, but the real sort of power of a CTE program is when students complete a pathway, and even actually a capstone project in many cases. That's sort of the ultimate vision. And as you can see, so the left-hand chart is a breakdown across racial and ethnic group of students who complete a pathway, right? So that's of the graduating class of 2023, what percentage of that class had students who met the goal, what percentage of them were of those various racial and ethnic groups, but also the three sort of what we call special populations groups, multilingual learners, students, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and students with IEPs. And as you can see, we have differentials in outcomes in this indicator, and there's a lot of reasons that contribute to that. But often it is the competing demands of the other courses that we offer in the district, or A to G eligibility, right? Or if students are struggling early in school, they got to take extra classes, that just precludes them from being able to take extra elective classes. The graph on the right shows the pathways which our students in the class of 2023 completed, and you can see sort of the distribution of how many students did at least 2 courses during their high school careers. This slide is a simple summary of the way that our program is funded. As you can see, the largest investment comes from the general fund. That's sort of in the middle there, about $2 million, and that really is in the form of teaching staff. In addition, we have significant grants from the state that support the instructional materials needs of our courses, as well as the dual enrollment effort. And so each of those grants has sort of a slightly different focus, but in general, they're there to sort of augment and supplement our core program. I'm going to conclude my presentation with a quick review of some of the overall strengths and needs of our CTE program. As the slide indicates, the most important strengths of the program are absolutely our dedicated teachers. Many of them are long tenured in the district, and they provide some of the most engaging project-based learning in the district. We also have a broad array, and they're accessible to all students, right? All students have to take one of these classes at least. We have a broad array of course offerings at most sites. In addition, we have strong staff in our career coordinators who support teachers with lots of work-based learning opportunities, as well as some individual support for students. Finally, we also do seem to have a fairly consistent revenue stream from the state to support the instructional materials and dual enrollment needs of our programs. So in contrast to our considerable strengths, this slide summarizes our areas of growth. First, we have, as you could see on the previous slide, uneven pathway access and completion rates across the school sites due to other programmatic priorities. And I call out sort of, Hillsdale and Cappuccino are sort of the standard schools we talk about because of their investments in IB or the house model that constrains their supply of elective classes. So they have some of the least robust course offerings across the district. Meanwhile, we also have heavy student interest in business, the building trades and healthcare careers, but no programs in any of those areas. In addition, and this is becoming increasingly acute for us actually, we struggle to attract CTE credentialed staff when our teachers leave us. And there will be a number of those over the next few years as we face retirements across the pathways. In fact, Mills High School this year actually lost two pathways essentially. They had 2 retirements and 2 teachers. Those 2 teachers went those 2 pathways unless we're able to find new staff, which we're having trouble finding. Although I think we might have actually found them.
Sorry, can I just ask which pathways those are?
Biotech and foods, culinary arts. And because these are single person programs, that's the challenge, right? Finally, we have also had a number of challenges in our partnership with the San Mateo Community College District related to dual enrollment. These have included inconsistent communication brought on by significant leadership turnover at the colleges over the last few years, as well as a lack of consistent faculty partnership between their faculty and our faculty. And as well as some last minute course cancellations that have caused our students to be without courses. We're committed to getting this partnership back on track so that it's beneficial for our students first, but also our faculty and our two districts.
Mhm.
And I think that's it. If I can get the thing to go. I don't know how to make it
Uh-oh.
go.
I think
Okay.
it ran out of battery or something. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Oh, sorry, trustee Land had his hand up for a long time, and this time I actually saw it.
No,
Go ahead.
no. I just listened to that amazing presentation. I just want to say thank you, Brian. I think that was excellent. So I'm going to change my hat for a second. As the middle school feeder into Burlingame, we just got a CTE grant to start experimenting and trying this. And I'm wondering, you talk about the high end, you talk about the community college level, but how can we support, how could your partner district support the CTE environment and what's going on? I'm going through my own experience of learning that this is a new area for us, but I know San Mateo Foster City has a pretty good, CTE program that they're developing, but I'm finding the same problem you are, which is recruitment. And so trying to recruit, how do we get that? What does that look like? And credentialing is a big, huge issue for me. So I'm just curious as to how you doing it, what are you doing, and can we do some things together?
I mean, I think certainly we're always open to partnerships with our elementary partners of all. I mean, I think we need to start to get really creative about some of this stuff. But I will say the thing that seems to be working best in the middle grades, and this is certainly not my big idea, but is a lot of career exploration in the middle grades. I mean, I think because of the focus on our particular subject specific classes, we don't really give kids a ton of opportunities to explore. And so while we do interest inventories and things like that, I think it'd be great if we had the ability to have kids start to explore in the middle grades. I mean, that would sort of be a perfect partnership, right? Where they explore in the middle grades and then they really kind of focus in high school, and then ultimately take community college courses. I think on the recruitment front, I mean, what's been great is we've gone to like Baybeck. So what I think we're learning is if we go to some of our kind of industry-based partners to look for staff or some career changers who might, like, we've actually found that in a couple of instances in the district now, some computer scientist people who like kind of made money and did well, and then they decided they wanted to become teachers. And so I think those kinds of folks are connecting with professional associations that way or organizations is a way to kind of tap in, because and Principal Dzinski at Mills has been really beating the bushes to try to get folks for the positions at Mills.
I just have one last question. Sorry. So is AVID part of the CTE program?
No, they're independent programs, but certainly, our AVID program supports any student, certainly especially if they're in dual enrollment classes. I mean, it's always about, advancing rigor. So no, and I think it's actually, and I think AVID actually does have some CTE elements to it, but we haven't engaged with them explicitly.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, trustee Chavez.
Dumb question, but thank you for the presentation, Brian. It's very, very informative. My question is, I think I'm confused about, it says here, graduation requirement, it's compulsory for all students. So does that mean all students will take, so it's a two-part question. So does that mean that every student that graduates our district would take a pathway course? And my other question is, my daughter, along with her friends, took the foods class last year at Cappuccino, and that teacher was part-time at Cappuccino, part-time somewhere else, but some days were good. And then there was that day where something got burned and the fire alarm went off. But regardless of that was, they completed the full year of the course. And I don't know if that would be considered a pathway completer with 1 year of a CTE course, or do you have to take a certain number of courses?
Yes, you've got to take 2 classes at least in the pathway to be a completer. And so every student must take 2 semesters of the same CTE class to graduate.
So in this case, they took foods, but would that be considered a completer then?
It would not be completed.
Okay, so you need to take 2 classes. So
it's a culinary arts class or a hospitality class with dual enrollment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the explanation. And great presentation. Thank you.
Trustee Jacobson.
I would like to know what you're doing to help get the word out and advertise in the partner districts what the pathways are, because I don't know that a lot of people know that, like, if you want biotech, you have to go to this school.
Right.
Or additionally, I don't know if it's possible if kids want to take part of the biotech program, let's just say, but they go to Mills or Hillsdale, is it possible that we could set up, I mean, this sounds like a logistical nightmare, but could we bus kids over for a period and bus them back? I don't know, because I know-
Biotech actually used to be that way. We don't have to do it anymore because we've been able to establish programs at 3 sites, but we actually started the program because the sort of jewel of the district is at San Mateo with the big center there. But
Right.
we actually had sort of satellite programs at Aragon and Mills to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And they only had the year 1 classes, but now they offer both year classes, so they actually were evening classes for students at San Mateo. So yes, it's not unprecedented. We honestly, the kinds of resources we get from CTE would allow us to do that sort of thing. So we certainly, as part of our ongoing evolution, we talked about it this spring when we actually applied for some grants from the state that we've now appealed because we only got one of them in a really sort of strange allocation. But to start some new pathways in those areas that I talked about in business and healthcare careers, and kids could actually go, we had put into the grant that we'd sort of figure out a busing scheme so that the classes would be in the evening. So we've tried to be creative in trying to figure this out. So
I love that idea. Yeah, like my daughter, she would love to do foods, but there's nothing at Hillsdale for that.
Yeah, and that's the one challenge is like that geography does matter. And so we have to trying to figure out how to
have
create
everything at every site.
some twilight options. It was probably the right option, the right answer.
Oh, and then my question about how are you advertising or publicizing or educating about the pathways?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do definitely talk about our CTE pathways as part of our 8th grade information
do,
nights and things
okay.
like that. I think people are tending to be focused on the A to G pathway and are you going to get the classes and the this and the APs and the this and that. So I think folks aren't hearing it as well. And we could always, it's a good suggestion to kind of maybe redouble it if people aren't hearing it. So redouble our efforts around communicating about our CTE pathways.
Yeah, and maybe just, I think is it Shannon Couch? Okay, I've talked with her a little bit about it. She shared with me a beautiful graphic document, but I don't know how, like, that's a beautiful document that is says exactly what the pathways are and where they are. I had never seen that before. And so I'm just wondering, how can we get broader distribution of that communication?
It's in your memo, so that's one place you can find it. That document for this meeting. But I also think we've got some promotional materials in our so we have like slide decks that we do with students during the school year as part of course selection process. So we do a lot of like advocacy, and it's in the interest of our teachers to get students to sign up for their classes.
Yeah,
so there's a system in place whereby folks, both inform students of what their options are and when they need to take them as part of their 4-year plan.
Okay, good. Another question, sorry, I have a few. Is there any way that the bridge students can have access to any of these?
As it currently stands, their school day makes it challenging because they're really focused on getting their core credits. But I will say that later in this agenda, there is a new role to offer them a college and career counseling. So part of that new intake role that's on the agenda later today, a counselor role, is to teach 2 dual enrollment courses, which are we call them college and career readiness classes, but they're basically exposure and access classes. So students learn about what their options are in terms of going to community college and what the pathways are there. And for that student population, that's probably the best kind of CTE class because it exposes them to all the options and also the requirements of what you need to do to get yourself into those kinds of programs. And so what we're in that job is two sections eventually. It's going to take us a while to grow, but of a college counseling class that will be taught by the intake counselor. And so that's one of the purposes of that new role.
Okay, that's great. And then my last question is, do any of our students could they have access to any of these programs at the adult school or CSM, for example?
So CSM, there's a lot so Hillsdale's got sort of the largest. I think they literally have probably. I think next year they're going to have about 8 dual enrollment offerings offered at so CSM faculty on the Hillsdale campus, if that's what you're asking about, and that has to do with kind of proximity and geography with those 2 institutions, and then. You had another question. You said something else.
Like I think the adult school has like a medical assistant license program.
Yeah, so a lot of the adult school programs are really targeted at 18 and up, right? They have sort of age requirements. So that is certainly to kind of focus on that population of folk.
Okay.
But we are really honestly really trying to figure out how to create some of the pathways that we know are of interest to our students and families.
Okay.
Can I just, so
Oh,
sorry,
yeah, trustee
I
Bennett.
listened to trustee Jacobson and she had marketing and you started talking about counselors. What about counselors when they come to the middle schools? Do you have them talk about CTE? Because I don't think they do. I know they do a lot of other stuff and but I don't think they focus on CTE at all. So
I don't think it's a focus. You're right. I think it's one of many things they say.
Right.
And I agree. I think we'll talk to the team about like how could we beef up this information? Again, there's a heavy constituency who's really interested in understanding the college going process. And so I think that's what
Let's
ends
talk
up
about
taking
that.
up a lot of the airspace, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the majority. Trustee Chavez.
Yeah, thanks I have one more question. The dialogue sparked another question. So if a student is interested in biotech and it's only offered at a couple of our school sites, what would you recommend that they do? Would they try to transfer into the school that has?
I mean, if they're that interested, I think that's one way to go. I mean, I think that in general, I mean, honestly, each of our courses, while it is focused on a particular topic, they're really focused also on giving students a broad kind of just start to think about what do you really want to do? Because honestly, when you're 16, you don't really know that you're going to become working at Genentech. Maybe you will, but I'm not trying to say you couldn't, but I'm just saying that giving students exposure, and that's why we really focus. I didn't say anything about it, but we have a checklist that we require all of our classes to adhere to, which is really all these kind of key experiences and products that we want students to develop in the class. So no matter what pathway you're in, you're getting exposure to really the important things, which is beginning to explore what you want to do and getting some of these key touchstone elements of becoming a worker, if you will, or getting a job.
Right.
And I think so. Again, I think I would say that because we could never accommodate every student for everything they might want, but I think so. Part of it is really ensuring that we're giving students the skills, kind of passport skills that they need to be successful, so that they could ultimately end up pursuing biotech when they get to college or whatever the topic is.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Trustee Griffin?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of, it's getting later and later,
Sorry.
but a couple of questions. So and it occurred to me, how do you introduce and identify new pathways that could thrive in our district?
So we're supposed to use sort of two, right? One is the market, I mean, the labor market. And so we regularly engage with the county office. There's some information in the memo about our kind of engage with the county office. They give us industry advisories. And that's one way, is kind of what is the labor market? The challenge is that the labor market is usually way ahead of our ability to turn the Titanic to be able to address that. So the other way is we speak to students, right? We get student feedback. So we do surveys in our CTE classes to get a sense of student interest. And business by far kind of wins every year. And we're still struggling to kind of pull that off. We've got some business classes happening from the college providing dual enrollment, but we're really trying to find our own instructors.
It's funny. I probably spent 3 days this week talking about the great accounting shortage because nobody wants to be an accountant anymore. And all the accountants are literally leaving the profession, retiring. They're all kind of like my age. And, but I tell people it's an opportunity, but it's not flashy enough. So we're sitting around, the accountants of the world with their eye shades are sitting around trying to figure out how we take those eye shades off and start making it, with glitter and confetti and glamour and all that. So watch for that marketing campaign.
Sounds good.
The other thing though, seriously, there
Good
is
luck with all that. Yeah.
there is, you can ask all the accountants, they're ready to leave it. I am concerned that most of these programs are just like one, they're sponsored by one individual. And when that individual chooses to retire, that the program can go with them. So, is there ways we can kind of have succession planning or transition to build up to make sure those programs don't leave when the key person leaves?
I think that's part of what we're working on. I mean, I will say that San Mateo is a really great example. I mean, I think Jimmy Ikeda, who most folks know about, Jimmy's really kind of semi-famous in the district, and he's developing a younger crew over there to take over from him. So I know that like some folks have been able to do that partly because of the size of their program. It helps because then you can have a couple people doing it. But I think we're learning some lessons. I'm going to keep leaning on Dr. Black to help us figure out how to make sure we have we have a stable of folks to take over as folks retire.
So if anybody has ideas, send them to
Yeah, send them to us. Yes.
Mr. Simmons here. Um, yes.
This is on the lines of, I don't know what to say, but I just wanted to say that you make things, you have an easy, okay, let's see. It's easy to understand the way that you explain things, Brian. And I was just telling Trustee Jacobson that I probably would have done better in college if you were the professor for a couple of my courses. So thank you.
Oh, can you just tell everybody at home if they don't know where, where they can get this information? And it sounds like maybe there's a need for
Certainly, and
some
it's
information
publicized on our
there.
website. So we have each of the schools has a website. Certainly, school counselors, our career centers, our college and career centers, the college and career and financial aid advisors, and the career coordinators are often in the same office near the library. And so those are great places to go to get this information.
Great. Thank you for your presentation. That was excellent. Thank you. Okay. We'll go on to summer professional learning. Superintendent Booker.
Yeah, this evening we have Dr. Hopkins here. Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations.
And so Dr. Hopkins is here to give us a brief overview of our summer professional development. This was at the request of some trustees, I think either at our last meeting or the meeting before, I can't remember. And it was really successful. I know a lot of our trustees attended. So thank you for coming tonight and putting this together.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening, board members. This is all information that, you have received and we've shared with you in the past, but just really briefly, we have an instructional framework because what we're trying to do is bring some coherence and alignment around many of the resources and programs that we have in place. So we've shared the purpose with you in the past. That's just sort of some reminders, but also wanted to note that the development of this, just really want to reinforce that this has been a multidisciplinary teacher-led team, that we have been doing this over the course of 2 years, and that this has included over 130 different classroom visits and student shadows. And so this has been an incredibly complex and comprehensive task, and has led us to this structure. So we have 5 principles, which within each principle, there's 4 dimensions. Each one of those dimensions has a descriptor and a look for. And the descriptors and look fors really get down into literally what could this look like in a teacher's classroom. And we've been really careful and hopeful to explain that the framework should be an offering of inspiration to teachers. It's not a checklist of things that you have to do and go through in your classroom. And that's so many of these, what it could look like, came from those 130 classroom visits. So it's a real celebration of the work that we've seen in practice in our district. So what we decided to do for our Summer Professional Learning Institute is we decided on a soft launch. And a soft launch for a restaurant is about testing out some recipes, gaining receptivity, troubleshooting what's going on in the kitchen. Our soft launch was really about, we wanted to understand what was the receptivity of the framework with our teachers in the district. How can we as a team get feedback to further improve and refine the framework? And that we know that the professional learning and support of understanding the framework is going to take time. So what can we anticipate some of those future needs being by testing out some of the resources and activities to do with our teachers during the summer PD? It also is an opportunity for us to really kind of identify those early adopters and how do we nurture them and continue to support them in the work. The soft launch is going to lay the groundwork for what we plan on doing next year. And our goal for 24-25, and implementation is always it's a multi-year process. There's no way that you can do it in 1 year and said, yay, we did it, it's done. I mean, it's going to take time. And next year, our focus is really about making sure everyone understands the SMUHSD Humanizing Pedagogy Instructional Framework, understands what the principles are that support that, and understand that this is a continuation of our anti-racist journey. And really, we want everybody to begin practicing their fluency with the framework, the principles, so they start talking about it and they start referencing the principles in their conversations. Before I get into the actual summer PD, I want to acknowledge that this was really a magnificent collaboration effort with all of our instructional lead team members. And it wasn't just my effort or members, your administrators' efforts. This was truly born of our collaboration. And I wish that they could be here. I'm going to do my best to channel their energy and their enthusiasm for the work. I also want to recognize that Marlo Bagsick was instrumental in putting together something that was super professional and well organized. Again, so just wanted to acknowledge that a lot of this is his and their work. So for the structure for the PD, we started off with a keynote, moved into what we called a common grounding workshop to make sure everybody was grounded in some of the important ideas. Then we did 4 breakout workshops where folks rotated through these different sessions. These were led by 8 teacher leader presenters, 3 administrator presenters, and we had 1 external presenter join us. We had 109 certificated folks attending. That's roughly 20% of our total certificated workforce. And typically a summer PD Institute attendance ranges between 20 and 30%. I'll just quickly paraphrase these. For our rational outcomes, we really wanted people to leave the 2-day workshop being able to describe what the principles of humanizing pedagogy were and to understand the different components of the framework. And in terms of the experiential outcomes, we wanted them to experience professional learning in a more humanizing way, where we were really nurturing collaboration with their colleagues and helping them feel excited about some of the new ideas and feel affirmed about practices they were already using in their classroom. So getting into the day, overall feedback for both days had us at, I cannot see, and my print here is too small. I believe that is close to 95%, 4 and 5s being considered, 5 being considered very effective. Overall, folks were appreciative of being able to collaborate with colleagues from across the district. They seldom get opportunities to do that kind of cross-site conversation and collaboration with some of their peers at different school sites in the same content area. They appreciated the organization, they appreciated the professionalism, and they appreciated having time to really dive into the framework deeply. Our keynote and welcome, which was given by Androtacia Fitzgerald, who's the author of Anti-Racism and UDL, she really focused on the concept of how do we honor the learner in the classroom by knowing them, by understanding their experiences, and by creating educational experiences that meet them where they are to help reduce the barriers of access to their education. She was well received by our participants. Folks felt that she was really engaging in a great way to start off our day. In terms of the common workshop, we had 88% give it a 4 or 5 or better, 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5. And the focus of this was we wanted folks, everybody at the same time, to have an understanding of, first of all, an introduction to the framework, an understanding of what we meant when we said humanizing pedagogy, and what we mean when we say critical consciousness with respect to the framework. And participants appreciated that this was our real attempt at finally addressing the how of anti-racist teachings. We spent a lot of time talking about the what and the why, and now we are getting into the how. What is this going to look like in my classroom? So now I'm going to talk about the different breakout sessions. One of them was called Learner's Reality. This is one of the principles. And the importance of learner's reality is you get to know your students so that you understand the assets and the cultural wealth that they are bringing with them into your classroom. And how do you leverage that when you're designing instructional experiences so that you are truly tapping into the resources that they bring with them? The people who expressed appreciation around this, what really resonated with the most was we weren't focusing on the deficit of students. And oftentimes when we talk about meeting students' needs, we focus on the deficits, but instead changing this, disrupting that, providing a counter narrative that says students come to us with experiences, and how do we tap into those experiences and understand them enough so that we can leverage them to help students feel engaged and feel honored in the learning process. One of our other breakout sessions was trusting and caring relationships. Our teacher presenters put together a choice board where participants could choose different inputs that really spoke to the different research-based practices around the importance of creating effective relationships with students in order to make sure that they are engaged in the learning, that they feel cared about. And what neuroscience tells us that the affective filter has been lowered enough where they're optimally primed to engage in the learning in the classroom. This was an incredibly well-received workshop. Participants said not only did they enjoy all of the resources, they enjoyed the choice of activities that they could engage with, and they also appreciated the way that it was modeled for them from the presenters so that they had a clear picture of what that practice would look like in their classroom. Andrew Tasa Fitzgerald, she facilitated our Fostering Student Agency workshop, and she provided a workshop that was both hands-on and included a lot of participant dialogue around understanding what does it mean to foster student agency? What does it mean to help students build the skills to engage in education in a way that's meaningful for them? What participants had to say about this particular workshop is that they appreciated that Andrew Tasha, first of all, her amazing level of expertise in universal design for learning. And additionally, the way she models what it means to create an environment where you have high standards for folks in this space, but you're also recognizing and identifying the barriers that can be coming up and eliminating those barriers so that everybody has a place in the conversation and the learning environment. Relevant content was a combination of some of our teacher leaders, one of our administrators, and in this particular workshop, they really focused on this idea. Students will learn when they feel connected to the content and when they feel the content is relevant to their lives or relevant to real world contexts. In this workshop, they began by talking about the different levels of engagement for students and why relevant content is important to providing optimum engagement. They followed this workshop. Second half of this workshop was a gallery walk where they actually had San Mateo Union High School District teacher examples of different lessons and activities where teachers were creating this relevant content or real world application of the information, the activities, and the standards that they were working through with students. The teachers really appreciated that it was multidisciplinary as well, particularly our math and science teachers. Oftentimes, these sort of examples can be, and I'm saying this as a science teacher, oftentimes these examples can feel like they're very much centered on the humanities, but it really was across all disciplines and gave folks really great entry points and examples of practical things they can do in their classroom. So some of the improvables, I'm going to focus, number one, on the food. I just want to name that it's always a bit of a thing, but what we know moving forward is it was an unbelievably gorgeous venue for those of you who were there, breathtaking views of the ocean. And should we choose to use that venue again, we will work on some different menu options. So for participants, they wanted a little bit more professional learning community planning time with their colleagues. We did have some of that in the day, but we recognized we need to go through and find different ways to structure that. Teachers were also really eager for practical application. So which we're excited about because that's where we want them to be. And what we're hoping for next year is we can start finding even more examples that we can link to the instructional framework for teachers. And then some folks recognize they need more processing time. One of the things the instructional lead team will do is need to take a look at some of the inputs and resources we used and figure out how do we strike a balance between providing the right level information and making sure people have opportunities to process it and engage with it. So moving on to, and it's like this dies at the second to the last slide. Oh, there we go. Review and incorporate feedback on the instructional framework. So one of the surveys specifically asked participants questions about the framework. And we're going to take their responses and we're going to use that to do further revision and refinement, because this is a teacher-created, teacher-facing instructional framework, and we want to make sure that their input is valued. We also know that we need to support our site professional learning teams in figuring out how can they begin to integrate principles of the framework into their site professional learning plans and WASC goals so that we can begin to build the fluency I was talking about earlier. In terms of our new California standards for the teaching profession, we know we want to make some real clear connections between those new standards and the instructional framework, and we are eagerly awaiting the release of the continuum of practice rubrics from the CTC to do that. And then finally, speaking to the more practical application piece, we know we need to spend some time developing tools to help teachers see how they apply the framework to stuff in their classroom, their practice, but also to make it more accessible. Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions.
Excellent. Guess we will go on to, we could take public comment first or board comments. Should we take do you all want to take the public comments first? Okay, great. Yes, we can take the public comments.
Looks like their hand went down.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right, then we'll take board comments. And there's no one else online, huh? Okay.
Not that I
great.
see, no.
Okay, great. Great, Trustee Chavez.
Thank you. I had the wonderful opportunity of attending the morning session of day one. And I want to thank I think it was amazing. The keynote speaker, the whole thing that I was, I had to leave at 1 o'clock on the first day, but everything, you could tell staff put a lot of time into organizing this and also the content. So I want to say thank you to everyone involved in the planning of this, because it's a lot of hard work. I think the keynote speaker was excellent. After she was finished speaking, I had the opportunity to go up and talk to her for a little while. Amazing. And I also wanted to say that the venue was great, and it's about a mile from my house. So I want to thank everybody for trekking up to San Bruno. And the Fairlawn Room is one of the newer buildings in Skyline College. And I've been there for about half a dozen other events. It's different food options. So hey, if that is one of the most constructive feedback, then that means the whole 2 days of PD was excellent. If that was the main what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just tired. As Trustee Griffin says, it's getting late. If that was the most hey, what can be improved upon? If that was the most item that was selected, then I think I just want to say how impactful that was. And I think the table exercises that we had, as a group, we had table exercises, and then we were broken up into by the color of the folder you were provided. So then I was at another area, and I was with another group. I think it was Aragon staff. And it was, again, the table exercises, talking to one another, listening, coming up with ideas. I think that's instrumental. And I think the games were really great too. Walking around, and there's some games that we played in. And then seeing everybody win, most everybody won because of the way the rules had changed. And then you went around and you wanted to lose because you wanted others to win. So just everything. The first 5 hours, that was the part I attended. It was excellent. So thank you. And thank you to everybody involved. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any, Trustee Land, sorry about that.
I just wanted to say this is awesome. I think what this illustrates is going back to the previous comments about, anti-racism and what consultants were doing. It really shows that you were connecting the dots. It really is they start something, you're introduced to it, and now our own people are really creating these, build it, connect it. And I love the presentation of how you're connecting the dots for the teachers in the classroom. So keep it up. It's amazing. I wish I could have gone, but I'm always working. But it was awesome.
No, and thank you, Trustee Land. One of the comments that we also received on that the students had said about anti-racist work and all that stuff was that they wanted to see it in not just ethnic studies, that they wanted to see it across subjects. So yeah, this is great. Thank you very much for your presentation. Trustee.
No, just thank you. And that there was a quote that I think we were looking for something because we're all kind of struggling. It was, thank you for finally addressing the how do we incorporate anti-racist teaching strategies? I think that's what, I think we've talked about it enough. We need to do it and, you know, and get through the sort of the conversations on the front that are really more, you know, that they're not getting us anywhere. I mean, in terms of making progress, and I'm sure it would be very frustrating for somebody out there who's being charged with something and, well, I don't know how to do it, or I don't have any tools. All we ever do is talk about what we're going to do. And I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but I think the how,
Yeah.
once you get engaged in that aspect, it's got to move. This program's got to move so much faster than just,
Yeah.
you know, the theoretical. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if there aren't any other comments, is there action with this?
No.
No action. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go on to Division of Human Resources. Dr. Black.
Yes, the first part is the HR consent agenda as the personnel actions, and then a renewed MOU with San Mateo Foster City for a deaf and hard of hearing teacher, 50% of her services, and a renewed MOU with Berkeley Educational Leadership to continue providing career coaching to up to 5 administrators or managers. That's for consent.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the HR personnel consent agenda.
I second that.
Okay, motion by trustee Jacobson, second by trustee Chavez. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take comments. Are there any public comments? Thank you. Okay. All right, we'll go on to the next item.
There is a hand up there.
Did that just go up?
Oh,
That's the person from earlier and then the hand went down and then went down.
I see the comment. If they are not comments on our human resources items, then we cannot take it right now. Oh, okay, thank you. Did they go down? They're still up? Okay. Okay.
Oh,
Hi, I'm so sorry. I joined late and I wanted to speak on the anti-racist training item, but I don't know if I missed it.
Yeah, sorry about
I
that.
missed it.
But
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry
Yeah,
about
you
that.
can
Thank you.
you can send an email though.
Okay, I will.
can
Thank
send
you
it.
so much.
Thank you. All right. Okay, sorry. We were entertaining a motion.
We had a motion and a second on that.
Yeah.
Yes, so
We did consent. We're on personnel.
yeah, sorry, it's late. I apologize, y'all. Okay, personnel addendum.
Personnel addendum, and we have two
Sorry.
recognitions tonight. We have Nancy Green, a school bus driver, who submitted her retirement effective at the end of the day on June 18th, and she has been with the district for 11 years, 4 months. And Debbie Arobio she's a accounting technician at Hillsdale High School, and she's submitted her retirement as well, effective on August 19th, and she's been with the district for 18 years and 10 months.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the public on the personnel action addendum?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay, and there's nobody in person. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move adoption.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, approval of the revised administrative management salary schedule.
Yes, we recommend approval of the revised administrative manager salary schedule. It has 2 revisions on it, and these are the changing titles from manager to director for the director of communications and the director of mental health programs. And along with the change in title would be the movement to level 7 on the salary schedule. We recommend adoption.
Great, thank you.
Approval.
Are there any comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. And there's nothing online. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a
This
motion by
schedule?
trustee Jacobson
Second.
and a second by trustee Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Approval of non-representative administrators.
This will be a bit of a long one. These are the approval of the 24-25 contracts for all the district administrators and non-represented classified management. The board president or designee needs to report the terms of compensation out verbally at an open session that includes salary, health, and welfare benefits. So I'm ready to start. Are you going to
I'll
start?
do the
Okay, go
first
ahead.
part, yeah. So the following are the compensation terms for the district's non-represented administrator and classified manager positions. Each administrator manager will receive health and welfare benefits up to $25,343, transportation and cell phone reimbursements of $275 per month, various subscriptions and memberships and reimbursements for approved district expenses. The first is Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Julia Kemke, salary $249,060 at 221 workdays. Secondly, Yancey Hawkins, Associate Superintendent, Chief Business Officer, salary $274,862 with a 221 workday calendar. Thirdly, it is Kirk Black, Deputy Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services, salary of $292,900 with a 221 workdays on the calendar. And before Dr. Black reads all the other management administrator positions, I want to make something really clear. We are in the heart of negotiations with our bargaining groups. These are approving contracts with no pay raises, no additional benefits, none of those kinds of things. So, and that won't occur until and only if we reach settlement with our labor partners. So I want to just make it really clear that these, while we're approving contracts, work contracts for the 24-25 school year, they do not include any kind of compensation raises because our labor partners haven't received them yet. So I'm going to hand it back off to Dr. Black.
Okay, I'll continue the list under the same terms of benefit compensation. Assistant principals, Jesse Boyes, assistant principal, Hillsville High School, salary $206,715, 214 workdays. Karen Biaski Simon, assistant principal, Burlingame High School, salary $182,706 at 214 workdays. Eric Dane, assistant principal, Mills High School, salary $178,250, 214 workdays. Jenny Gibson, assistant principal, Burlingame High School, salary $187, 273, 214 workdays. Michaelis Gordon, assistant principal at Cappuccino High School, salary $182,706, 214 workdays. Diego Harris, assistant principal at Mills and Cappuccino High School, salary $173,903 for 214 workdays. Andrew Hardig, assistant principal, Aragon, salary $178,250, 214 workdays. Michael Holtz, assistant principal at San Mateo High School, salary $206,715 at 214 workdays. Gary Hong, assistant principal, San Mateo High School, $182,706 at 214 workdays. Shannon Lane, assistant principal at Aragon, salary $182,706 at 214 workdays. Amy Malcolm, assistant principal at Burlingame High School, salary $187,273, 214 workdays. Ashley Milton, assistant principal at Hillsdale, salary $206,715, 214 workdays. David Moore, assistant principal at Aragon High School, salary $182,706, 214 workdays. Lauren Ponte, assistant principal at San Mateo High School, salary $178,000, $178,248, 214 workdays. Sarah Prensky Pomerantz, assistant principal at Hillsdale High School, salary $195,170, 214 workdays. Mauricio Rodriguez, assistant principal at Cappuccino High School, salary $178,250, 214 workdays. Jonathan White, assistant principal, Mills High School, $178,250, 214 workdays. Alfred Wolfgram, Peninsula High School Assistant Principal, salary $192,580, 214 workdays. Our directors are Simon Bettis, Director of Technology, salary is $217,433 at 221 workdays. Linda Carlton, Director of Maintenance Operations and Facility Use, salary $217,433 at 221 workdays. Laura Chalkley, Director of Public Relations, Communication and Publications at $206,715 at 214 workdays. Valerie Miller, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, salary $222,562 at 221 workdays. Donald Catena, Director of Student Services and Middle College Principal, salary $238,311 at 221 workdays. Brian Simmons, Director of Curriculum and Assessment, salary $238,311, 221 workdays. Angela Taylor, Director of the Adult and Career Education, $215,571, 221 workdays. April Torres, Director of Mental Health Programs, $206,715, 214 workdays. Dennis Orissis, Director of Student Nutrition, $185,353 at 221 workdays. An Assistant Director, we have Kira Mann, Assistant Director of the Adult and Career Education at $186,766, 221 workdays. Executive Director, Karen Holder Jackson, Executive Director of Excel, $172,311, 221 workdays. General Managers, James Hyde Jr., General Manager of Operations, salary is $176,619, 221 workdays. Charlie Royce, General Manager of Facilities, $172,312, 221 workdays. Managers, Vanessa Castano, Manager of Accounting, $209,710, 221 workdays. Joanna Fite, Manager of Multilingual Learners, $181,150, 214 workdays. Savvy Hopkins, Manager of Teacher Induction and Professional Learning, $194,108, 214 workdays. Samia Showman, Principal of Bridge School and the Manager of Academic Support Programs, $212,483, 218 workdays. Jennifer Vilfort, Behavior Program Manager, $140,582, 204 workdays. Our Associate Manager is Joanne Michaels, Associate Manager of Mental Health Programs, salary $186,734 at 214 workdays. And our principals, Ronald Campana, Principal Peninsula, $238,311, 221 workdays. Pamela Dazinski, Mills High School, $238,311, 221 workdays. Jennifer Fong, Burlingame, $238,311 at 221 workdays. Jeffrey Gilbert, Hillsdale, $238,311, 221 workdays. Jose Gomez, Cappuccino, $229,754, 221 workdays. Yvonne Shu, San Mateo, $238,311, 221 workdays. And that's 46.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions from the public? Any questions from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I need a motion.
So
Sorry,
move adoption.
sorry,
No.
Trustee Chavez, did you have a comment?
And I could be mistaken. I thought at our last board meeting, we looked at the cost of healthcare through Kaiser that the district pays because it's a really great package for staff. And I remember seeing it was about $3,000 a month as a benefit if you are a staff or if you're an employee and you're covering your spouse and your children. So I think I remember seeing that our last board meeting 2 weeks ago. So if the benefit is $3,000 a month, then that'd be $36,000 $1,000 a year. But I thought the top of this agenda item that it said 20,
25,343.
right. So then so wouldn't it be a little higher than that if it's 3,000 a month times
It's not 3,000. I don't know. I wasn't at the last board meeting, but it's not
Oh.
3,000 a month.
Okay, I've never seen that.
I'm
We
not
can ask
sure.
Yancy. We can ask Mr. Hawkins later then.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I apologize. I was
No, sorry.
out having a conversation with Mr. Simmons, but in terms of health and welfare benefits, so one of the things that I have to go back and double check, but we could get back to the board. I know that in the contracts, and this is still under negotiations with our labor partners. I believe that is it at the 2023 levels? It's not at the contract amount is actually at a lower amount. And in 2024, we covered that with one-time money. So it may be that this has reverted to the contract amounts, the same as our labor partners, but I'd have to double check. And
It was just that I remember seeing a graph that showed how much it would be for just the employee or the employee and their spouse or the employee and their spouse and their dependent children. I thought it was $3,000 a month. Then that would be at least $30,000 annually for medical benefits.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to double check. But I do think it potentially has to do with not being at our contracts are actually not at the 2024 level. And so as keeping everything as we're doing negotiations, that may have been kept at that lower level as well.
Thanks. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, I would like a motion to approve this item.
I'll make the motion
no.
and I'll second that.
Okay, I'm sorry, trustee
Trustee
Griffin
Griffin?
moved and trustee Chavez seconded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, motion carries. Going on to approval of the job description for senior staff assistant.
Yes, the next three items are new job descriptions, and the first one is for the senior staff assistant at the Bridge School. The Bridge School requires a position of the full-time staff assistant. This is similar to the one that we have at Peninsula High School, with a few added duties and responsibilities for the specialized program at Bridge, and we recommend approval.
Great, any questions from the public?
No.
Great, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Chavez, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Approval of the newcomer transition. coordinator.
Newcomer transition coordinator. Bridge would benefit by incorporating a full-time newcomer transition coordinator. The role will work closely with the principal and Bridge staff to support students in meeting graduation requirements, but also developing a transition plan once they leave the school.
Great, any questions from the public?
There are none.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? None? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve. Okay,
So move.
thank you. And I'll second. Okay, motion by trustee Griffin, second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Motion carries. Approval of the job description for the nurse on special assignment.
Nurse on special assignment. We've had a substantial increase in students with specialized healthcare needs. And we also have our typical challenges and limitations associated with contracting out nursing agents services. So we've identified the need to employ a licensed nurse to ensure that proper training is provided to our staff and other required services are provided to our students in a timely manner. We recommend approval.
Okay, any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Questions or comments from from the board?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion by trustee Land and a second by trustee Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Approval of the memorandum of understanding.
This is an MOU with Fresh Lifelines for Youth, or the FLY program. We've worked with this program for many years. This MOU would provide FLY to both recruit and train students at San Mateo High School to be peer advocates and participate in restorative circles in order to build a community of support and provide an ongoing opportunity for alternatives to traditional punitive systems.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Okay, I just want to say that Fly is an amazing, amazing organization. They do a lot of great work in dismantling the school to prison pipeline. Excellent. Okay, and I'd like any more comments or questions from the board?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, a motion by trustee Land, second by trustee Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. Okay, approval of the resolution.
Yes, the next two items are resolutions that are part of a new law that it's passed that allows CalSTRS employees to forego the post 180-day retirement waiting period. So the first one is for an athletic coach. Athletic teams develop athletic coaches develop coach relationships with athletes. Teachers and retired teachers are trained in adolescent development and have real-world experience leading, instructing, and interacting with our students. Therefore, the district recommends the approval of the resolution 23-24-23 that will allow a recently retired teacher to assume the role of athletic coach prior to the usual 100-day post-retirement waiting period.
Excellent. Any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Questions or comments from the board?
I
Okay,
make a motion to approve resolution 23-24-23.
thank you. I will second. We have a motion by trustee Land and a second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Can we also just maybe talk a little slower? We have ASL interpreters that are.
Oh,
trying to-
absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the approval of another resolution.
This is another resolution, and it's for substitute teachers. So the district has greatly benefited from employing retired teachers as substitutes. Retired teachers are familiar with the district's instructional programs, professional development, policies, and referral systems. Retired teachers often provide a seamless transition for students from their current teacher to the retired teacher substitute.
Thank you.
Therefore, the district recommends approval of resolution 23-24-25 that will enable the 3 recently retired teachers to substitute without having to wait the 180 days.
Thank you. That was much better.
One point of order, just correction, it's resolution 23-24-24.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve that resolution.
Okay, first, are there any comments or questions from the public?
There are none.
Comments or questions from the board?
I'd still
Okay.
like.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Land,
Second.
second by trustee Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, now Division of Student Services, Superintendent Booker.
I got it. Either way. So this evening we have interdistrict student transfer appeals. The Administrative Appeals Committee reviewed 7 interdistrict student transfer appeals, and the committee is recommending a denial of 7 of them, identified as numbers, and they're listed on the memo. The committee reviewed these requests and found no compelling reason to grant the transfers. So we're recommending denial of the 7 interdistrict transfer student appeals.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the administration's recommendation.
Thank you.
Denial.
Motion by trustee Griffin. I will second, second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, motion carries. All right. No, that's okay. Okay, the next one.
Sorry, I went too fast. Sorry.
You're okay, you're okay.
7 cases. So that was 24, 25,
73, yeah.
Now we have to do 24, 25, 42.
Yes. Now we'll go on to 24, 25, 42. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, motion.
I'll move adoption of 24, 25, 42.
Motion by
Oh.
trustee Griffin.
Sorry. We're not gonna have a presentation on this?
No, we did earlier. Closed session.
On the LCAP?
No.
Sorry, we're
That's okay. We are on interdistrict transfers.
Oh, I thought we just did that.
We're
We
doing
did
it one at a
We have to
time.
do one at a time, all 7.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
he could, but
Well,
We
no,
did.
I just did this last one as the way it,
so right now we have a motion by trustee Griffin on interdistrict transfer appeal 242542.
I second.
Okay, motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Jacobson. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're going on to 242510 and
So
the
moved.
interdistrict transfers. Any questions or comments from the public?
None.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay.
I'll make a mo-
Thank you. Motion by trustee Land,
second.
second by trustee Griffin. All in favor?
I,
Thank you. Okay, interdistrict transfer 242558. Any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Any questions or comments from staff? Staff, excuse me, from the board. Oh my goodness me. I just want you all to comment every day on everything. Questions or comments from the board? Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Thank you. I will second. Motion by trustee Land, second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Thank you. Okay, interdistrict transfer 242545. Any questions or comments from the public?
None.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, motion.
So
I
moved.
move. Oh, thank you. I will second. Motion by trustee Land, second by myself. All in favor?
I,
Okay, interdistrict transfer 242589. Any questions or comments from the public?
None.
From the board? No? Okay, motion.
I'll move.
Thank you. I will second. Motion by trustee Griffin, second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna
Okay,
abstain.
Oh, abstain.
for 242589.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so for pass, one abstention. Interdistrict transfer 242556. Any questions or comments from the board? Excuse me, from the public?
None.
From the board? Okay, motion,
So move.
second?
Okay.
Okay, motion by trustee Griffin, seconded by trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, motion carries. And we're finished with those. Okay, Division of Instructional Services, Dr. Kemke.
Yes, so we have a very short presentation on the local control and accountability plan that I think we're going to pull up in just a minute. We just wanted to quickly review first the process that we went through. This is the new LCAP for the 24-27 through the 2027 school year. So it's our new 3-year plan. And we did pretty extensive outreach to our Latino parent organizations. We continue to work with our equity advisory committee and did outreach to our DLAC with our administrators, teachers. And then we also use the survey data from Panorama to inform it. And then we left it off this slide, and we also had a LCAP community meeting on May 2nd as well. So all of that stakeholder engagement was integral to developing the 3 goals, which are just a refinement of our previous LCAPs. The first goal being safe and connected community. And within that goal, some of the major actions are our student equity councils, much of our family engagement events, our mental health program, and we wanted to highlight the intake counselor that was approved at the last board meeting was one of the recommendations from DLAC around improving, enhancing our transition for our newcomer students. And then you'll see some of the survey, the metrics that we look at under that goal. You can go to the next slide. The second goal, under humanizing education, this is specific to the work that we're doing in the classrooms. This was previously called inclusive and relevant learning, and we're align the goal to be specific to our instructional framework. So the actions under here are continuing to develop our instructional framework, doing some work around equitable grading practices, and developing social emotional learning curriculum. And then you'll see the metrics that are included under that goal. Final goal is in supporting, empowering staff, and this is all around our hiring work, our professional learning, and then strong teacher collaboration. We also see under here our classified to certificated work, all of that to support our staff. And then our metrics here are satisfied. You saw some of that just from the summer PD, looking at the reflection data on how the PD is going, looking to see effective classroom practices, our recruitment of teachers of color, and then our survey questions on work culture. So really brief overview. As you know, throughout the year, next year, we'll talk about the metrics and share how we're making progress on both the actions and the metrics. This is the adoption of the new 3-year LCAP. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Simmons to talk about the local indicators, which is also a required part of the LCAP.
Quickly, so the state requires in the LCAP, there's sort of these like big picture metrics that
Need your microphone on.
There we go. Great. Sorry, everybody. So this is a quick local indicator report. We're required to do this as part of the LCAP approval each year because we give you all this information throughout the school year, but we have to have a formal moment to talk about these particular local metrics and how we track them. So basically there are 5 areas of local metrics: basic services, they're called, implementation of standards, parent engagement, school climate, and course access. Again, we parse that out over the course of the year, but they make us do this special presentation just for you. So here we are. And so basically, we just have to articulate, this all ends up on the school dashboard. We articulate how we did at these various areas. So under basic services, that's basically, does the school district provide high quality services and staff to and instructional materials to all students. We met that objective basically using our FIT reports. And again, we report this data to you throughout the school year, usually in the fall. There's a Williams report that we provide. Meanwhile, then on implementation of the standards, we basically use a district level tool to assess how we're doing at implementing the standards, and also just look at our outcomes in terms of the CASP exam and things like that. And in general, we have work to do, across the board, but in general, we're meeting the objective, which is to continue to work on implementation of the standards. The third area is around parent and family engagement. And so one of the requirements is that we have a survey that we conduct, which we do. The panorama survey. So that's the basic requirement, is that we do it. We also give you some of the data about how our families have reported. And then also we engage in this activity around outreach that we do. The fourth area is around school climate. Again, we use the panorama survey to collect this data. Many school districts just use the Healthy Kids survey. We use this one. And basically, I've reminded you of some of the data points that we've reviewed back in March around some of the key data points, but we did a much more extensive review of this data back then, but we have met that objective in continuing to pay attention to these metrics. And then lastly is around access. And so we actually really use our 10th graders on track as kind of our primary source of this information, as well as our graduation rate. And so you'll see data on this slide about course access that basically we have to kind of locally identify a way in which we're making sure that kids have access to a robust program. And we use this data to sort of to articulate that. So this is basically the report. Basically, we've met the objectives across all the different content areas. We will publish these findings they actually will go in there by the end of the month, and then they'll be published on the dashboard on the 24th. We'll continue to look at these various local metrics, bring them to you all, bring them to staff, and use them as part of our continuous improvement process.
Thank you. Always excellent work. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Does the board have any questions or comments? Yes. Trustee Jacobson, sorry.
Yeah, I do have some questions. First of all, I was glad to see that the CCI and CTE pathways was added as an indicator. What are equitable grading practices?
So, I mean, I'm happy to start. You can add in. So basically, it's really around ensuring transparent, clear grading that happens in classrooms where it's not kind of you have to kind of figure it out or you know it when you're getting a good grade. It's really associated with standards-based grading is one of the easiest ways to explain it. Like, did a student attain a standard, and at what level did they get of depth? Did they attain that standard? So that's really the idea. And it also is things like the zero, like the right zero has been for many of us who went to school. We got zeros when we didn't do assignments. Well, zeros actually have a mathematically inaccurate impact on your grade. Just because you didn't do something doesn't mean you should get a zero. It mathematically is not a fair measure. So that's another example of an equitable grading practice, right? And we're still working on getting folks to stop using zeros and things like that. You want to add anything?
I would just say that it's ensuring that grading is objective so that we are working with teachers to have objective measures that include rubrics as well as standards-based. But I think Mr. Simmons covered it pretty clearly there.
Okay, great. How is the Wayfinder SEL curriculum selected?
So it's being piloted at the school site. It's being piloted at Middle College and in our self and social empowerment classes. We're going to see if it gets expanded. We actually talked about expanding its implementation this spring, but decided we actually wanted to have it implemented kind of more broadly in our self and social empowerment classes before we went more broadly. So it could be, so when you saw the social emotional learning curriculum listed as like a theme, that's not necessarily the curriculum we're going to use. That's one that's being piloted right now in a couple of school sites.
Yeah, and my question is, how did you go about selecting?
Staff kind of brought it to us after looking at different options that were out there. We'd had a pre-existing one called School Connect that we've been using for a number of years in our self and social empowerment, used to be called guided studies classes. And so that curriculum has kind of fallen out of favor with folks. The Wayfinder curriculum is digital. It has these kind of really cool kind of workbooks that students use. So folks felt like it was a more contemporary curriculum that was really also addressing a lot of the digital citizenship kinds of stuff that we want to help students with these days.
Okay. Now this is a big question. So we've seen some really good results with Avid, and you spoke highly of it in the LCAP that this is something that's been proven to be good. Why are we not expanding that to, there's 4 sites that have it. Why are we not expanding that if it's been so effective?
Yeah, I mean, we make the offer every year to school sites. I mean, schools really have, the 2 schools that, or one of the schools that doesn't, so the 2 schools that don't have it have other approaches, right? So Hillsdale has the house model, it has advisories, has a very different structure from the other schools. So they've made the intention choice. I mean, they've looked hard at whether or not they're going to have Avid or not, and decided that through their other intervention scheme and their supports that they have as a school, they don't need it. Mills has implemented the SAIL advisory, which is actually a little bit, that class has been in place for the last couple of years. It's actually on the agenda in a couple of items, I think. They've been in a pilot phase for that. They feel like and honestly, if you look at post-secondary outcomes for Mills, they're the school I'm least worried about in terms of student matriculation. So that's kind of, those are the 2 schools that don't have it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, we need a motion. I move to adopt the new LCAP. Thank you. Okay, I moved, trustee Griffin seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, but we didn't take public comment.
Yeah,
I
I was.
apologize. Thank you. It's late. Is there anyone online?
No.
Thank you. And there's no one in the public, so. Hey, okay.
Okay, I don't know where we are.
Well,
Yes, we just well, we're about to approve it, so, do you want to
Can I make a comment?
come sit?
I was, one of the only comments I had is.
Wait, you gotta go to the microphone.
I don't want to get anybody sick.
We never explained why you're upstairs to the public, maybe you want to do that. I don't think we ever explained.
So just an explanation. I'm not feeling well. I think I have a fever. I tested negative. I went upstairs, took a COVID test. I'm negative, so that's a good thing. But LCAP wise, I noticed that we have all of our objectives met. Usually with LCAP, we want to have stretch goals. And I'm wondering what's our next step and how do we go forward from there? Because it sounds like we've accomplished everything and we're wonderful, so we're done.
So our objectives were met just for the local indicators. So we have many stretch goals within the LCAP that we have set for ourselves for several years. But the local indicators ones are pretty basic and low level. So meeting the Williams Act is that we have clean facilities, that we have enough books, those types of things. So the local indicator, we have met those objectives, but our goals within the LCAP, we still have much room to grow.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Any other questions or you're good? Go home, you're sick. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Let's see what else.
LCAP federal addendum.
Okay. Oh, yes. LCAP federal addendum.
Yeah.
Do I just,
Federal addendum.
So we're looking for the approval of the LCAP federal addendum, which outlines how the district used federal funds to supplement the LCFF funds.
great. Okay. Any questions, comments from the public?
None.
Questions or comments from the board? All right. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion by trustee Griffin, second trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. I didn't take public comment again. No, I did.
You did on that one.
Goodness, my brain. Okay. All right. This is our last meeting until the next school year. All right. Approval of introduction to investments.
So yeah, we're seeking board approval of these two. The next two classes are two pilot courses at Aragon. Partly in thinking about the future of financial literacy that we think is coming to us. So yeah, these are two new classes.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public?
I just have a, oh, go ahead.
None. Okay, and trustee Land, you have a question?
So my question is, I saw the CSU and UC code, but and it was like it wasn't there yet. But when I'm doing course of study, usually you have to have a CalPADS code in the course description. I didn't see that.
We will put that on. We'll get that.
Okay.
Agreed. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I think this is really an important course. So I'm hoping that this pilot is really well received and that we can move it to the other school sites. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Chavez, second by trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approval of personal financial literacy honors course.
Same song, second verse.
And same comment from me that I think that this is really important and I'm glad that it's being rolled out as a pilot. Hopefully it'll be rolled out to all school sites. I want to make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree. I
It's okay,
hope
we
that,
can hear you.
I hope this is expanded eventually.
Yes.
Okay, motion by trustee. Wait, are there any questions or comments from the public?
None.
Okay. Motion by trustee Chavez, second by trustee Land. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of SAIL advisory course of study.
It's the third course. It's there for approval for Mills to continue to implement this class. We don't see anybody else doing it, but we think Mills certainly wants to continue doing it as a permanent class.
Thank you. Okay, questions or comments from the public?
I think it's late, so that's why I'm not thinking straight, but what, is that an acronym SAIL? It's all capital letters.
It is an acronym.
Okay.
It has to do with Viking ships, but I don't remember.
Okay. I thought it was because it's mixed in with the financial courses, so I thought maybe, what's
It's
it?
not independent study. No. It's a ninth grade kind of advisory sort of class for students at Mills.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, so motion by trustee Chavez, second by trustee Land, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent. Okay, Division of Business Services, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, I believe the presentation is going I have a brief presentation for the proposed budget While we pull that up, just want to take a quick note to thank Debbie Arobio. Kirk noted that she's retiring. Before she was at Hillsdale and did an amazing job at Hillsdale. She was in the district office and the business office, really supporting our purchasing and bond efforts. So on the June 6th board meeting, we had a full presentation of the public hearing budget. Tonight, I will give a brief update, and then staff will ask the board with their recommendation to adopt the proposed budget for 24-25 fiscal year. We'll go over the changes since the public hearing, go over the multi-year projection and the assumptions. We'll go over the estimated actuals and proposed budget. We'll actually look at that multi-year projection, and then we'll go over next steps. So the changes since the public hearing are almost all on the restricted side of the budget. So they do not have a large impact on the unrestricted side of the budget, mainly just on timing of when expenditures are going to happen. In terms of the assumptions, the one change from the June 6th is our workers' compensation. I noted at the June 6th budget, but SMUHSD did approve a 1-year moratorium on that. That actually was, I found out some more information on that. That was to support the payment of the self-assessment for SAM liabilities that the district got of about $400,000. So that will increase back up in the multi-year projections up to the actuarial determined level of 1.52%, as you can see in the out years. Also, just to note, we do include an assessed value increase of 3.5% in the out years because we've seen relatively that over the years as kind of a relatively low number. But we do not note a salary increase in there. So when you look at the multi-year projections, it is important to note that there is not a salary increase. There is the 3% that we put in the budget at the public hearing on June 6th. In terms of the estimated actuals in the proposed budget, these are very similar to what was brought on June 6th. In terms of the multi-year projections, we continue to run an unrestricted deficit of a little under 2%. That decreases in 25-26, and then it goes away in 26-27 in the multi-year projections. But to be clear, if you see at the top, I just want to highlight there's no salary increase in 25-26, 26-27. And if you do put in any sort of commensurate increase that we would see at likely 3.5%, then we will still hold that roughly 2% ongoing budget deficit in the out years. So we're going to have to monitor that, and we'll come back to the board with an action plan this fall prior to first interim. In terms of next steps, we are going to recommend the adoption of the 24-25 budget. We'll continue to review the San Mateo AV tracker. It's just about to be done. We'll manage those one-time funds, finalize negotiations with our bargaining units, and in the fall, we'll finalize that enrollment and staffing and analyze how long-term management plans align with our district goals in LCAP, which the board just approved. We'll manage fund balance and financial resources to maintain long-term fiscal solvency and stability. And as Trustee Griffin always likes to note, we will resist using future dollars or one-time monies to justify paying for ongoing expenditures. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and staff recommends adoption of the 24-25 budget.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Does the board have any questions or comments? Okay, motion.
No, I mean,
Oh, you have a.
the every year we look at this and, we used to have board members who would think you were sandbagging and, oh man, every year you overstate that. And we just, I don't think we're in a position now that there's no sandbagging, there's no, if there's any fat in that budget, it's well hidden, I think, because it's, and it's just getting ready to be tough times, lean
Yes.
times. And I think we need to be
Mhm.
really vigilant, and keep our eye on the mainstream and, really watch that, watch the budget.
Mhm.
I think you're absolutely correct there. We're gonna have tough times, and I think there's gonna be tough times all around the state as coming out of COVID, the needs have really increased, the services have increased, and the one-time money that was paying for those, increases has now gone away, along with our state funded partners really having about a 1% COLA. So
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, I need a motion.
Did you get public comment?
Oh, yes, I did. Mhm.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt the budget.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by trustee Griffin, second by trustee Jacobson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, motion carries. Okay, scroll that up for me.
So we pulled, sorry, I didn't scroll
Sorry
down
about
for you. Yeah, we pulled the next item, and so we're on to board, city committee, and school assignments. I would love to make a recommendation that we table this item for August, now that trustee Land is absent, it's late.
Yeah.
This is something we can discuss, over the summer. You can give me individual desires on what committees, and then I can agendize this for our first board meeting in August if the board so chooses.
Yes, and we can also discuss it at our retreat on the 30th. Okay, I agree with that. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
No.
Does the board have any comments on that? Okay, all right, motion. Do we need a motion to table?
Motion to table board operations number 1.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by trustee Jacobson, second by trustee Chavez, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, motion carries. Oh, thank you. All right, and now we are adjourned. We don't have any more board meetings.
So I'll see you in 6 weeks.